Council's Committee on Budget and Finance shall come to order. This is our regular meeting of 13 November 2018. This morning we have members, Mr. Carroll.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, sir. Ms. Crivello. Good morning, Ms. Sugimura.
Good morning, Chair.
And Ms. Cochran.
Hello, Chair.
Okay. We'll welcome Mr. Atai, who has joined us. Good morning, sir. Mr. White is excused. Members Guzman and King. Oh, we have Member King, so Mr. Guzman is excused also. Okay, so we have 7 members. Thank you, members. We do have a lengthy agenda, but I think we may be able to take care of it within the time allotted. A lot of it is housekeeping requests before this committee regarding grants, but before we take up the items, we shall take public testimony. By our committee rules, those that have wish to give comment has 3 minutes on each item. State your name, your organization if you represent such. Address your comments to the chair. We assist you with your time. Green is to keep talking. The yellow light means if you're still speaking, you have 30 seconds to conclude, and red means your time has completed and you shall stop. This morning we'll ask, first up, please turn off all noise-making devices, members and people in the gallery. Thank you. We'll ask Amber Starr if she would come forward and give us her testimony, please.
Good morning,
Good
Chair,
morning.
Committee members. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today. My name is Amber Starr, and I will be speaking on today's agenda item BF 183. I am here on behalf of HRP HANA LLC, formerly known as HANA Ranch Partners. And I'm also here in collaboration with the HANA community nonprofit, Ke'au Hali'i. HRP HANA, I'll refer to as HRP, is the owner of various Makai properties in areas around Hana. And Ke'au Hali'i is a community nonprofit dedicated to protecting and preserving the natural and cultural resources of the Hanamoku and the customary and traditional practices of Native Hawaiians of the region. HRP HANA LLC and Ke'au Hali'i have been working together and engaging with local government, including state and county, to facilitate the purchase and donation of numerous properties along and near the Hana coast. Earlier this year, on behalf of Ke'au Hali'i, our East Maui Council member, Bob Carroll, requested a budget item for funds to be used by the community nonprofit for due diligence purposes. And that was in connection with this cooperative transaction. When this budget request was first made to Councilman Carroll and then approved, it was towards the closing of the budget process. And the parcels that were identified were those that had been in conversations up to that point. And as the dialogue has continued between all the parties involved, it's actually been decided to adjust and expand the scope of that and to include some additional parcels in the overall discussion. So at this time, we are requesting that the scope of this budget item be slightly adjusted to include the additional parcels listed in County Communication 18-369. And the dollar amount of the budget item will remain the same. We would also ask that the committee recommend passage of this proposed bill with the mentioned revisions upon first reading. So in closing, I am personally very excited about the conservation opportunities with this collaboration and between Ke'au Hali'i and HRP. And we look forward to working with local government, including the county, towards a commonly beneficial future. So thank you for your time today, and I also thank all of you for your service and your dedication to our Maui County. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ms. Starr. Any questions for the testifier for clarification? Members, having done, Ms. Starr, thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Meyer.
Morning, Chair,
Good
members.
morning.
Nice to see you again. I'm Paul Meyer. I'm here as a citizen, and I'd like to offer a few thoughts about BF 21, the acquisition of Wailuku Water Company. I'm concerned about that. Over the 6 years I was deputy in the water department, I had a number of occasions to talk to the mayor about this and tried to advise him against acquiring this property. And I'll share with you why. First of all, given the claims and applications for the water that comes through Wailuku water system, it's unlikely the county would see going forward any additional water from that system. So the question is, what does the county get out of it? County gets the right to pay, I guess, the nominal price of $9.5 million. Secondly, the county undertakes to maintain and operate the system, and it's my understanding that the system is in not very good condition. There's a lot of deferred maintenance, diversion works, and the ditches need serious attention. As a matter of fact, it's my understanding most of the ditches are earthen. They're not even concrete lined, which means they leak and erode, and there are lots of weeds and growth in them and that sort of thing. It's a big maintenance issue. So you're not going to get any more water. You're going to take on this additional capital cost of repair and the operating cost of maintenance. And then lastly is this question of potential liability associated with owning this much land and these dams, diversion works, swimming holes, and that sort of thing. As you folks are aware, probably once a month, the fire department has to go in there and pull out injured people who fall off cliffs and get injured in the flash floods. And if the county should own that land, it would be the county that's squarely in the potentially liable for slips and falls and claims up there. And I'm concerned about that as a citizen. I think that there's maybe a better alternative. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, excuse me, Mr. Meyer, for your comments this morning. Any questions for clarification, members? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Meyer. Okay, we'll go to our district offices. HANA office, is there anyone, Ms. Lono, that would like to give public testimony?
Yes, good morning, Chair. This is Dawn Lono in the HANA office, and Scott Crawford will be testifying on BF 183 as a representative of Ke'auhali'i.
Thank you.
Aloha, Chair Hokama and members of the committee.
Good morning.
My name is Scott Crawford, and I am the chair of Ke'auhali'i. Thank you for hearing this item BF 183 today, and I also want to say mahalo to Amber Starr for her testimony, and basically I'm just affirming and reiterating what she expressed as far as the reason for this budget amendment. At the time back in March when we first had the opportunity to really enter into a dialogue with the HRP, HANA HRP, as well as the Councilmember Carroll and the administration regarding the possibility for open space funds to be used to protect some precious HANA lands. And I think that the members of the committee were all here for the HANA budget testimony and may recall quite a few members of our community expressing their support for this item at that time. But in the discussions, we were looking at certain parcels that had been put under contract by a potential buyer who then withdrew his offer, but that served as a catalyst for the community to come together and enter into this dialogue with the sellers. And at that time, we were looking at just the the parcels that he had put under contract, but in our further discussions, we realized that in part because some of these parcels were already under conservation easement, it made sense to look at some other parcels in the immediate adjacent area in the Mauicounty area as well for possible acquisition. And so in our as the process has moved forward, we realized that in order to be able to do the appraisals on these adjacent properties, we need to have a slight amendment to the budget, to the scope of this budget item. As Amber said, we're not requesting any additional funds. We're just asking that the funds be allowed to be used for parcels that are right in the same area, and allow the process to move forward. So we really appreciate the support of the committee for this item, hope that it can be passed back to the full council and then passed in first reading. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer, but thank you for your support. Aloha.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford, any questions for Mr. Crawford? Ms. Sugimura.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford, for testifying. And I guess I just wanted to, Amber and you both said the same thing about additional TMKs that's not listed in the item. So do you have the TMK numbers? That's not, I kind of double checked. And the TMKs that we see before us is consistent with what budget is providing us versus what you're saying. So do you have the additional TMK numbers? No?
Yeah, the TMKs should be listed in the communication from the administration, the second communication. The ordinance.
Okay, I'll wait. Thank you.
They're all right in the Mauicounty area.
Okay, Mr. Crawford, we'll pick it up when we pick up
and
the item.
Waiohonu stream, basically.
Any other questions for Mr. Crawford? Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else, Ms. Lono?
There's no one else waiting to testify at the Hana office.
Thank you. Ms. Fernandez, anyone wishing to provide testimony at the Lanai office?
Good morning, Chair. This is Denise Fernandez on Lanai, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Thank you. Ms. Alcon, anyone on Molokai wishing to provide testimony?
Good morning, Chair. This is Ella Alcon on Molokai, and there's no one here waiting to testify.
Okay, is there anyone else in the chambers who would like to provide comment before we close testimony? Okay, with no requests, members will close testimony for today's meeting with no objections.
No objections.
Okay, thank you very much. So ordered. Members, may I direct you to the first item of our business that is under BF 157-9. This is an amendment to Appendix A, Grants and Restricted Use Revenues, Schedule of Grants and Restricted Use Revenues by Departments and Programs for fiscal year 2019. Office of the Mayor, Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women. We have a correspondence dated November 1, 2018 from the Budget Office with a proposed bill for an ordinance. And this will allow the council to consider a grant in the amount of $6,000 for the Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women. Funds will support the domestic violence fair as well as the committee's advocacy and education efforts. Mr. Boz, any additional comments this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Members, any questions on the request before you? This is a housekeeping thing, something we've discussed during the budget session. So the chair will entertain a motion to recommend to council passage of first reading be ordered to print a bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix A, Part 1, Grants and Restricted Use Revenues, Schedule of Grants and Restricted Use Revenues by Departments and Programs, Office of the Mayor, Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women, filing of appropriate communications, and allowing staff to make any non-substantive adjustments.
So
moved.
Second.
Who made the motion? Ms. King, seconded by Ms. Sugimura. Any further discussion?
Sure.
Ms. Cochran.
Completely in support of this, as I was once on the committee before I even got on the council by Joanne Johnson had recommended me. But did we stop this grant for a while? Because this is new. So I'm just trying to recall my
Mr. Bose?
budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so this is basically at the whim of the state commission that provides the funds to us. So some years they provide the funds and some years they don't. It's been more yes than no, but this was unexpected, and so that's why it's not in the budget. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, excellent. So they kicked in some money to us. Okay. Very nice.
Pleasant, unexpected.
Very nice on the state behalf. Thank you.
Ms. King?
Yeah, I wanted to just follow that up. Thank you for bringing that up. I did attend the national conference for the commissions on the status of women, and I think having our entire state show up probably had something to do with that. And I also want to commend Kate Griffiths, who actually works in my office, for bringing the attention to this commission. So she's been extremely active as the chair.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes, 2 excused. We'll move on to BF 157-10. This is also amendment to Appendix A under grants and restricted use revenues. Schedule of grants and restricted use revenues by departments and programs for fiscal year 2019. Department of Police, Department of Transportation, Highway Safety Grants. Okay, so there's someone from MPD with us this morning. Okay, members, you have correspondence dated November 1 of this year from the Budget Office with the proposed bill for an ordinance. The ordinance is proposing to increase the grant by $191,676. We have already budgeted for the current year $1.008 million for highway safety grants. If you need to, on the attached bill for an ordinance, you will find the individual projects and the amounts attached in the proposed legislation for your review. Mr. Boz, any opening comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you, members, for reviewing this. We do estimate what we're going to be receiving this grant. The police department did an excellent job in applying for these grants and was awarded significantly more than what we were expecting. So that's why this is in front of you. We do have Lieutenant Gannon here to be able to answer any questions you might have. But as the chair mentioned, the individual projects that will be funded are attached to this communication in case you're interested. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lieutenant, any comments you'd like to share?
Morning, Mr. Chair, gentlemen, ma'am. We're always grateful to receive more additional funds, specifically as it applies to training efforts and funding of enforcement efforts that aren't effective of our initial budget.
Okay, thank you. Questions, members, on the request before coming from or through Maui Police Department? Ms. Cochran?
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on this. You have a particular grant writer or grant person solely in your department that seeks this type of funding and does the applications and things?
You're looking at him.
Oh, you are the guy. Oh, congrats. Very good. Okay, great. Thank you. No, I just was like, awesome. So I'd like to see more of that in other departments to be like you. So, okay, thank you for your job.
Okay, anyone else has a question for the lieutenant regarding the request? Okay, having none, the chair will entertain the motion to recommend to council passage on first reading be ordered to print a bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as pertains to Appendix A, Part 1, Grants and Restricted Use Revenues, Schedule of Grants and Restricted Use Revenues by departments and programs. Department of Police, Department of Transportation, Highway Safety Grants, filing of appropriate communication, and allowing staff to make non-substantive adjustments.
So moved, Chair.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Sugimura, seconded by Ms. Cochran. Any further discussion, members? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes, 2 excused. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll bring up fire department now. We have our chief with us this morning. Chief, you need any other support, please bring them on down now, please. Okay, may I direct you to BF 156-3. This is regarding amendments to the fiscal year 2019 budget. This is to authorize transfers relating to categories of use that are within a program or department. Department of Fire and Public Safety. We have a correspondence once more dated November 1st of 2018 with a proposed resolution. And this resolution is to amend the 2019 budget by transferring from the administration program category B to the following. From admin, it's going to go fire rescue operations program category B, fire rescue operations category C, and the funds will be used for compressed air bottle filling system for Molokai, 9 self-contained breathing apparatuses, self-contained breathing apparatus flow tester, relief engine, firefighting equipment, and repairs to our Lahaina station ladder truck. Mr. Boz, any opening comments?
Mr. Chair, I'll leave that to our Chief of Fire Department, Fire and Public Safety, Mr. David Tyne. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chief Tyne, good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Thank you for having us today. So as you see in front of you, and as the Chair mentioned, this is related to the auditor's report that was provided, and we appreciate that report, and it taught us a lot about somebody else coming in and taking a look at our department. He had a vast experience and history in the fire service, Mr. Stuart Gary, Chief Stuart Gary, and so we appreciated his efforts. He did identify the list of the following items here that we attached to the transmittal, and specifically, the compressed air system on Molokai. We've been reliant on either transporting our air cylinders back and forth across the channel, believe it or not. As unsafe as that is, we'd secure them as best we could. We've done that for years, and then when we were able to, we also used the State Crash Rescue Facility stationed there on Molokai as well. They've had some problems with their hydrostatic testing of their equipment, etc. And of course, we want redundancy, especially on that island being remote from Maui. So that's that first item there. The 9 self-contained breathing apparatuses are related to, as you know, we got a grant through FEMA for replacing our air cylinders, and this is a complement to almost complete all of the standardized equipment with the new SCBA system we have. I don't want to go into too much detail unless you have questions, but that's what those are. As well as the flow tester, that is a requirement, that's a regulatory requirement to flow test your breathing apparatus. We currently would send them away, and that's a substantial cost incurred by the taxpayers as well as the department. And so having an in-house flow tester is going to be very good for us moving forward. And then the auditor also recommended, and we also are in support of having our fully staffed relief apparatus. This panel, this committee, as well as the council and the mayor's office has supported us having relief apparatus. We appreciate that when we have the large storms or when we have large fires or incidents, having those extra apparatus that are fully equipped and we're able to just call back personnel is critical to our success in the field. And then the repairs to the Lahaina Station ladder truck, that's actually the relief ladder 3. It's not a misprint, but it's right now, relief ladder 3 is used while Tower 14 is basically, it's very cost worthy to repair the Tower 14. So the ladder 3 relief, that was the one that was replaced in Lahaina, is now our primary backup. And so we want to make sure that still stays in good shape moving forward. So that's what those costs are related to, Chair. And that's what I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Sugimura, questions?
Thank you for that detailed explanation. I was just wondering, I know that, yeah, it's a good thing we did that audit, and it did bring out a lot of good, things that we can learn from it. I think the budget chair also left you $200,000 or gave you $200,000 to fix some of these things that came up in the audit, which was, which could be needed, but you're not using that here, but you're going to be using it in other areas.
You're talking about the set aside we provided
Yeah,
the
set aside.
department in our
Yeah.
budget. Yeah, we gave them 250 to address the recommendations from the audit. Yes, we did.
So, yeah, and Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bowes?
this transfer, Member Sugimura, is utilizing those funds that were set aside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. That's why it's a resolution to transfer, because
Okay.
we're utilizing that money that was set aside. We
Great.
appreciate that very much. I think it worked out well.
Okay, so questions, Ms.
No,
Sugimura?
no questions. I'm just glad to see that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Atai, questions? Ms. Crivello?
I don't have any particular questions, but I'd like to say I appreciate the follow-through on, the cascade system and your 53,000, I guess, for your self-contained breathing. I think this is of value, and we've talked about that even during the budget and standardization throughout all of our stations, how you defined it. So I appreciate you following through that. The safety of our firefighters are held up. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll, questions? Thank you. Ms. King?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, thank you for being here, Mr. Chief Tyne. Do we have an estimate from that audit of what savings would be? Because I know part of it was the savings you're talking about shipping things back and forth. Was there an estimate about of how much we would be saving with these moves?
Chief?
I don't have those, thank you, Chair. Member King, I don't have those exact numbers. We could definitely provide it, but it is a substantial amount, and, it just, as the years go by, it just keeps adding up. And so the flow tester is a fairly small amount to pay. We actually used to have a flow tester in our department, and for lack of a better reason, it became outdated. And so this, in essence, could be considered a replacement of that. So in the interim, we've had to send it off to whoever we could. Fortunately, it's only in Honolulu, but it is a important piece. It's a regulatory requirement to flow test your.
Yeah, no, I'm not doubting it. I just
Yeah.
thought I would like to see the offset. It kind of gives. It also gives validation to the audit and to these actions when you can show. They said we were going to save this much. This is how much we're saving
Absolutely.
with these moves. So.
Absolutely.
Great if we could get that report.
Okay,
Thank
super.
you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Cochran?
Thank you, Chief Tyne, for being here. And so is this all the recommendations in that audit, or is this partial?
No, sorry, Chair. So this is basically the bulk of the funding that was, and thank you, Chair, and this committee for affording us the additional funding. It wasn't, as we talked about with Chair Hokama, wasn't even requested. It was very much appreciated, though. It was very proactive on his part. And so the other recommendations, I literally keep the audit on my desk, and we're following that along with our strategic plan and some of the other goals and objectives we've set as a new administration as our guideline. So we will continue to do that, and as we come into the new budget, you'll see a lot of those items as well.
Okay, very good. And appreciate the latter three, the Lahaina items in particular, after having that horrendous fire that occurred in West Maui. I'm sure your equipment and people and things got taxed on that particular incident. So appreciate the continued support for West Maui and Lahaina's fire station and to all of you. So thanks for those efforts and support this chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chief, couple of questions that the members did bring up. I know Ms. Sugimura brought up, the 250 we provided you to address the fire audit. So these transfers, in your department's perspective, satisfies part of the requirements of the audit then? In what are you presenting to us?
Yes, Chair. What we did was when our AC of Support Services, Chief Martin, sat with us as a group and we said, let's look at the audit and let's find areas that we need to address immediately. And part of it, obviously, like Member Cochran mentioned, you know, with the recent fires and the Hainan emergencies, having those relief apparatus was a priority, having equipment on those apparatus. And the other listed items also directly relate to the audit, and that's why we put them on the list.
Okay, very good. So this, for the short term, takes care of your department's priorities for operations, Chief?
I'm sorry, Chair, I didn't catch that.
With these transfers, this satisfies the department's priorities regarding operations for the short term?
Far as I know, I think if we're talking about operations overall, I'm not sure on the A account funding as far as payroll and whatnot. But as far as for meeting the audit specific requirements, I believe we're well on our way towards meeting those, Chair.
Okay, very good, Chief. We appreciate your responses to our questions. Is there any other question you would like to pose to the Chief, Ms. Sugimura?
So just one last question on your flow testing. Do you have certified personnel?
Chief?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Member Sugimura. The testing machine comes with a training package as well as a trainer that will train our people and certify our people to conduct the flow testing. It's a complete package.
Okay, so it's paying for that trainer to come and
Absolutely.
train the staff.
Yeah,
And
that's part of the bidding process, if you will.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else with a question on the request before us? Anything else, Chief, you'd like to share with the committee before I make my recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. I just, again, I know you have a long day ahead of you. I do want to thank this committee as well as the Chair for, you know, affording us this opportunity to address the auditor's, I guess, suggestions in this format versus trying to, you know, plug it in where we can with a limited budget or as our, you know, funds start diminishing. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. The Chair will entertain a motion to recommend to Council passage of a proposed resolution entitled authorizing the transfer of an unencumbered appropriation balance within the Department of Fire and Public Safety fiscal year 2019 budget, filing of appropriate communications, and allowing staff to make any non-substantive adjustment.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Ms. Sugimura, seconded by Ms. Crivello. Any further discussion, members? Ms. King.
Thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to appreciate I support the motion. I want to appreciate the department for actually, you know, following the audit recommendations and as well as your strategic plan. I look forward to seeing, you know, maybe a summary of that strategic plan. It would be great to see how it all relates to your budget, which is something that I've been a proponent of for a long time, is performance management. But I appreciate your leadership in this, and I fully support the motion, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes and 2 excused. Okay, we'll go to the next item, which is BF 186. This is a request to amend the fiscal year 2019 budget, Department of Finance. Countywide equipment, we have a communication 18-390 from the Budget Director with a proposed bill for an ordinance that would amend the fiscal year 2019 budget as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Finance, countywide, other projects, countywide equipment, total capital improvement project appropriations, and total appropriations operating and capital improvement projects. So a couple of things, members. One, the budget proposal is to increase estimated revenues for the bond fund. Okay, bond fund by $1.351 million. Amending section 4.B.1.A, parentheses 1-I-C. And then we also decreased the appropriation of two 1,500 GPM pumper trucks for Kihei and Napili stations by $148,000. amending section 4.B.1.A.1-Y by A, adding an appropriation for a ladder truck for the Wailea Station in the amount of 1.347 million, and adding an appropriation for a portion of one brush truck each for Lahaina and Kahalui stations in the amount of 152,000. And we're adjusting the totals accordingly. And then we also have a companion bill for an ordinance that amends ordinance number 4858, bill number 54 of 2018, relating to the issuance of GEO bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale, and delivery of said bonds, Department of Finance, countywide equipment. There's also a third bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix C, capital improvement projects, Department of Finance, countywide equipment. And it basically states the same things for those adjustments. Mr. Boz, any additional comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, you did a good job explaining it. It does look very complicated, but basically it's a FY18 appropriation that we're reappropriating for FY19 because they made a good effort, and I believe we're going to be saving the county money by possibly consolidating these bids and being able to purchase them all at once. And so the net amount is less than what the net amount would be should we have gone into separate procurement. So our Chief of Fire and Public Safety, David Tyne, can explain the details of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chief, any opening comments?
Thank you, Chair, and again, thank you, committee, for hearing this. Basically, it's been a long journey with the Ladder 14 replacement. Tower 14 is what it was called. It was a tower platform. We're going towards a ladder type of application. It's proven over the course of the years in Lahaina to be a more fit vehicle for what we use it for, potentially use it for. However, the bids came in substantially higher than the original award in the FY18 funding award or allotted funding. And so we've been trying as a department to work on those specs, whittle them down, if you will, for lack of a better description. We've gotten them down to the point where we feel is the safest, most efficient vehicle, and it's still higher than the amount. So we're asking for your consideration to continue our efforts to replace that ladder in Lahaina, or excuse me, in Wailea, as well as you see the two pumper trucks by virtue of looking over those specs and fine tuning, we were able to reduce the funding needed for the two pumper trucks, one for Napili and one for Kihei. So that was a good deal. We were very happy that we were able to do that, looking again to fine tune our specifications for our apparatus. As well as the two vehicles you see there, the brush trucks, those are related to both for Lahaina and Kahalui. As you're familiar with, as far as for Kahalui, we have a rescue company and a hazmat company, as well as our suppression company, which is Engine 10. Well, when they have any sort of suppression type of fires, whether it be a brush fire or something like that, our two specialty resources are very limited in their pumping capability. Rescue cannot even pump. It's not made for that. They're made for heavy rescue in those operations specifically. And then hazmat has a small pump primarily for decontamination and activities like that for calls that they deal with. So this resource will give us the availability for that crew to jump on a vehicle and that's adequate for going off-road and whatnot. And same thing in Lahaina. Lahaina has Napili as well as Lahaina Station Engine Company, suppression resources, as well as Tanker 3 for water supply. But Ladder 3 is virtually unusable because of its limited capability to go off-road and whatnot. So the Ladder company would be able to, again, use that resource to go off into where it needs to go in the rural areas and whatnot. So that's kind of a brief summary, and I know you have a long day, so I'll just answer any questions, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'll be fine, Chief. Before I ask the members for their questions or comments, Chief, I will share with the committee. Okay, this is something that we've been working on for terms. Okay, not years, terms, yeah, of how we approach capital equipment financing. Fire has made a nice adjustment, I would say, with since Chief Montalvo. He's was open to finding different ways of financing. Okay, because the traditional way was not working for this county. Not when we were being hijacked by one or two manufacturers. Okay. Previous chief of fire administrations, I guess, thought it was okay, but for us who fund, that's not okay. With Chief Montalvo and now with Chief Tyne, they've made the efforts. Yes, it's still higher than what we expected, but because of this effort of how they're going for, how shall I say, looking at, see if we can get better deals through a packaging program. This is what it's coming up. We're getting cost savings now than individual acquisitions. We've also asked the chief to talk to the other counties to do, see if it made sense for a bulk purchase discount of similar equipment that the other counties would also need to acquire for Kauai and Big Island purposes, yeah. So I'm supporting this. Yes, we are going to increase the obligation portion, but we can afford this, okay? And at this point in time, the trade-off with public safety, the funding is available. We're in good cash position. We're in good financial debt position with our ratios of cash to debt. So I'm recommending that we support the department this morning. But I wanted to give you the comments that the chief with, I believe, Captain Kawasaki or Assistant Chief Kawasaki has made the efforts to recheck the numbers and give us the best bang for our dollars. So I'm convinced they've done the very good due diligence, and I'm very open to this request this morning. Ms. Sugimura, comments or questions? Or?
Appreciate this. I remember discussions going on during budget session, so thank you. I have no questions.
Ms. Cochran?
No, thank you, Chair. I was thinking along the same lines as you, because you do bring it up, via NACO and the whole consolidating, and we as counties have pretty similar, items that we need to purchase to make our counties go around, and fire and police and things. The county core services are quite similar across the board. So it makes sense for us to consolidate and, package our purchasing power. So I'm very happy to see this, but I'm glad that you brought up the point that counties here in this state are looking to consolidate and work with each other. So that was going to be my question, if those efforts are being made. So it sounds like they are. So that's excellent. And looking forward. I mean, let's band together, right? And so buy in bulk and save in bulk, hopefully. So thank you, and very much support of this. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Ms. Cochran. Ms. King, questions?
Yes,
comment?
thank you, Chair. And I'm not sure if this is a question for Chief or for yourself, but I appreciate being able to consolidate the purchasing, and I'm just wondering, are we going to be able to consolidate the requests when you come before the Budget Committee and have a request for an individual item, and you set an amount? Sort of sets the amount for the bidders, whereas if we consolidated several pieces of equipment and we put a total amount and we didn't, kind of tip our hand as to what amount goes with each item, then maybe we'll get lower bids on those. So I just wondered if this was something we can do in the actual appropriation process as well as purchasing.
Chief, you have a comment?
I think that's a great idea. The only thing we typically do, I know, all I can say from when we come before you is we will typically get on the internet or get on the phone and get an estimate. And that's by virtue of our processes. That's what you have. This isn't actually a bid from Hughes Fire Equipment that's attached. That wouldn't be proper, obviously. It's an estimate. They happen to come by the representative for one of our vendors or our manufacturers. They transition with a different company representing the manufacturer in the state of Hawaii. So he came by for a meet and greet and introduced himself, kind of thing. What can I do for you type of concept. And so we talked to him about what it would be to package things up and what that would look like, and what kind of cost savings could we present to you folks. And that's what you see in this packet that was sent up by the mayor. And so that would be an estimate. So similar concept would be, I guess, what you're talking about, Member King, and I think that's a great idea.
Well, Chair, can I just follow up? Because I know, we've looked at certain amounts that were being requested, and we've lowered those amounts just because of that. Because once you put that amount in the appropriation, that's going to be the minimum. we're never going to get something cheaper than that. So I know that we've lowered amounts just in the hopes that we could get lower bids. You know, if we could package them together, it wouldn't be so obvious what each one was expected to be. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out as a potential first pass at that savings. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Carroll, any questions? Ms. Crivello, Mr. Attai?
Thank you, Chair. I'm in full support of this, realizing that, you know, this purchase, although it's more, you know, 351,000 more, what we're getting are 5 trucks, 5 equipment. But most importantly, some of the equipment allows us to get off-road. You know, the Central Valley, 36,000, West Side, something like plus 8,000 acres. You know, so that's a lot of area that we gotta cover that's off-road. So, you know, I fully support this purchase, especially for these kinds of trucks that allows personnel access to this open country area.
Okay, thank you. Any last question, Ms. Sugimura? You're the subject matter chair.
Yeah, thank you. So whenever we have fire before us, I wonder about Kula, and I think we're such a small station in comparison to some of the others. But with the 36,000 acres and you know just our nature of where we are located, I know that my community is concerned about, I don't know if you can call it a buffer zone, but you know the proximity of the residents to the vast 36,000 acres of land that abuts us. But so I hope we see some appropriations for Kula also, the fire station in the future. I just want to put a plug in for them. But I support this.
Okay, thank you. The chair will only will just share a quick comment to Ms. King's query. Council, of course, council can do many ways yet to assist the departments in how we look at capital improvements or capital equipment acquisitions. So we did one. We did adjusting the appropriation to force the departments to negotiate better with the manufacturers or suppliers. Okay, but that's one thing. The key for me is administratively. With the procurement office and the department and budget office, they need to put out smart RFPs. Okay, part of the parameters will help set the dollar amounts. Okay, environmental management, solid waste, they put out an RFP. We got high bids. They adjusted the scope, resubmitted, and then we got the lower bids. And we got the same equipment for the lower price because we adjusted the RFP. Okay, so again, there's multiple ways to skin the cat, as I've always told you folks, yeah. Some can be legislative through us, and some can be administrative through Department of Finance. Okay, how we craft the RFPs, how the departments want to approach the acquisition can also make a difference on the dollar amount. So for the new administration, it'll be a challenge. And for the new council, it'll be, again, a challenge to meet the revenue limitations. Okay, any other questions or anything else, Chief, you want to share with the requests?
No, I just thank again this committee for the opportunity to come before you and explain a little bit about our needs and the adjustments that we made. And I can assure you that, again, we're going to do things as safely and efficiently as we can with the safety of the public and obviously the concerns of the taxpayers and this committee and the upstairs as well, foremost in our minds. So thank you again for your time, Chair and committee.
Thank you, Chief. With no further questions, the Chair will ask the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Wait, do we have a motion?
We have a motion.
Did I ask for the motion? Shucks, I thought I did already. Okay, thank you, Yvette. So, members, okay, this is the chair's recommendation. The chair will entertain a motion to recommend to council passage of the following 3 proposed ordinances. 1, bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the county of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Finance, countywide, other projects, countywide equipment, total appropriations, operating and capital improvement projects. Proposed bill number 2, bill for an ordinance, amended ordinance number 4858, bill number 54, 2018, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui issuance, sale and delivery of said bonds, Department of Finance, countywide equipment. And third, a bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix C, as in Charlie. Capital improvement projects, Department of Finance, countywide equipment, allowing staff to make non-substantive adjustments and filing of any appropriate communications.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sugimura, seconded by Ms. King. Is there further discussion, members? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes, 2 excused. Thank you very much. Chief, thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it. Captain, thank you for being here. Okay, members, we're going to, no objection, we're going to take 2 items out of order, take a break, and then finish up the agenda as best we can. So no objections, we'll go to BF 185 at this time.
No objections.
Okay. Under BF 185, this is on a request for an intergovernmental agreement with the Department of Attorney General, State of Hawaii, Special Needs Advocacy Project, or SNAP. We are in receipt of a communication 18-388 from the prosecuting attorney with a proposed bill for an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the County of Maui to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Department of the Attorney General, State of Hawaii. And this is as regarding to $622,420 in services performed for SNAP for the term July 1, 2018 to June 30, 2019, with a requirement of a county match of $155,355. We also are in receipt of a revised proposed bill. Okay, we are going to need to revise the proposed bill. Okay, this morning we have Mr. Bowles. Any opening comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The grant is already recognized in the budget ordinance, so the requirement is, I'm sorry, there's an additional requirement. Anyway, for an intergovernmental agreement, that is here. We do have our first deputy prosecuting attorney here as well to answer any questions that you might have regarding this item. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rivera, any comments, please?
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, council members. Pleasure to be before you. Yeah. We're just asking that you support this SNAP grant from the vocal funds. Again, the matching is $155,355, which comes directly from the salaries that are already been budgeted.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Crivello, any questions for the department regarding this request?
No, Chair,
thank you. Okay, Mr. Carroll? Ms. King? Ms. Cochran? Ms. Sugimura? Mr. Atai?
No questions.
Okay, I think this is a pretty straightforward program. Okay, just be aware, we are required to provide county matching funds from the county. Let's see. Okay, I do know, Ms. Yoshimura, please assist the committee. I know that we need to do some revisions to the proposed bill for an ordinance, so can you, let's see, and one, I do know, members, we need to provide better parameters on the title of the legislation. So one that the chair will be recommending is on the front page under the bill for an ordinance title, after the phrase State of Hawaii, which is the last 3 words of the current proposed title, we would add in parentheses, Special Needs Advocacy Project parentheses. It's a clarification that it is the SNAP program. Under section 1, purpose, First sentence, we are recommending a revision, and that it would read in this manner. After the phrase purpose, the Department of the Attorney General, comma, State of Hawaii, agency, comma, through the, and this is where we're going to insert the revision, through the Hawaii Victims of Crime Act, parentheses, VOCA, parentheses, Victim Assistance Grant Program, comma, Special Needs Advocacy Project, instead of program. Okay, so that is your chair's recommendation for this. Shall we hand it out? Do you guys want this handed out to you? We'll make it handed out. Okay. So after when we take the recess, we'll get this squared away. Anything else on the revision of the proposed bill for an ordinance? Okay, we'll make copies, so we'll take a recess till 10:10, and then we'll return and finish up the day's work. Okay, members, we're back to order. Staff is handing out the proposed revision to the title as well as the section 1 to make it more clear that this is regarding the SNAP project. Okay, members, Ms. Sugimura, any further questions?
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, members, any questions on the proposed revisions, either to the title or the first sentence of the purpose? Again, what we're trying to do is make it very clear it's the SNAP program or Special Needs Advocacy Project. Okay, if not, the chair will be open and entertaining a motion to recommend to council passage on first reading, be ordered to print a revised proposed bill. Wait. No, I gotta revise the bill first. Yeah, so, okay, so let me say it this way. The chair will entertain a motion to forward to council for passage on first reading, be ordered to print a proposed bill entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Authorizing the Mayor of the County of Maui. Yeah, must be made in America. Okay, so I'm going to recommend that we entertain a motion of the proposed bill as transmitted, authorizing the mayor of the county of Maui to enter into intergovernmental agreement with the Department of the Attorney General, State of Hawaii, filing of appropriate communications and allowing staff to make non-substantive adjustments.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sugimura, seconded by Ms. Cochran. The chair will now entertain a motion to amend the main motion by 1, substitution with the proposed revision as presented to the members at this time to take the place of the original proposal. So the chair is open to a motion to amend by substitution.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Sugimura, seconded by Ms. Cochran. Members, is there any need for further discussion on the motion to amend before us? Having none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes, 2 excused. Back to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion, members? Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a nice healthy amount. Is this like dispersed equally amongst the counties annually, or how do we garner this funds and a little bit more. Is this a good number? Is it?
No, it's a
Mr.
good.
Rivera?
Oh, thank you, Chair. No, it's a good number because it is dispersed among, I guess, private service agencies like Child and Family Services and Women Helping Women who do really rely on our support and our funds so their programs can continue to service our victims.
Okay. And I guess, Chair, so as we saw with police department, grants writer seeking funding got more than anticipated, is this also a type of funding that we can be creative and, you know, garner more annually, or how does that work?
The answer to that is yes as well, because we do intend to increase it to $1 million next year. We are going to be the first county to open a victim witness counselors academy to train victim witness counselors on how to better or be more effective in working with people and their peers. Part of the funding will also go for our children's, right now we're calling it the Children's Peace Center, our co-location. We'll be bringing other agencies in, and we need to subsidize or pay for that as well. And the other part is we will be having a mass violence training in 2019, again, based on all of the tragic shootings that's been going on in the country. We want Maui to be prepared should that happen here. So the increase will cover those additional expenses. The VOCA funding will be available for the next 4 or 5 more years, and they expect that the monies will increase. So we'll be asking for more money each year.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for the efforts on that. Thank you, Chair.
Ms. King?
Thank you. Well, since we're talking about the funding, you know, it looks like the 155,355 is a set amount that the county is obligated now to match, to put in as matching.
Well, that match actually is the salaries for employees. So we're fortunate that they're not asking for a separate match, but they're allowing them the salaries that we use to pay for employees that are directly related to victim services. They're allowing that to be the match.
Okay, so we can just identify something where
there's no additional money.
So what is the percentage though that's required? Like if we're asking for, if we're going to be asking for $1 million, are we going to then be having to put in more match?
Right now, the VOCA grant is $622,000, and the match is only $155,000. So
okay.
You can do the math on that.
So, well, not in my head right now,
20%.
but that's helpful. Thank you. But I just wanted to know because it says up to 622, but it sounds like we fully intend to use that entire amount.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Your employees are civil service currently, Mr. Rivera?
Our victim witness counselors, yes.
But this is a grant program funded, and we've used civil servants for a grant project that's basically federally funded? Again,
as long as the employees are directly related to victim services, this is the purpose or the nature of the SNAP grant is that. So for
what
example,
is your projections on the subsidy you just mentioned in Ms. Cochran's response then? Because that concerns this committee when you talk about subsidies.
Maybe I used the wrong word. We intend to be creative in ways that we can afford our Children's Peace Center. So I'm not sure if subsidy is the right word for it, but in order to make it work fiscally, we plan to use some VOCA funding for that. VOCA funding is allowed to cover things such as rent, as long as it's directly related to victim services. And so the rent would be for other agencies to come in to our building to provide those services.
Okay, well, council will make the decision on how we pay the $155,000, yeah? Whether we do it through the salaries or we do it through a cash appropriation. That will be council's decision, yeah? Not the department's. And how we provide the matching amounts, okay? That's our decision, members. We make that call on how we provide matching requirements, okay? Through legislation. But with that, what is before us, again, is still the main motion as amended. Any further discussion, members? Having none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes, 2 excused. We'll move straight into BF 160. Again, this is regarding a notification of a grant award for domestic violence investigation program. We are in receipt of a communication 18-277 from the first deputy of the prosecuting attorney's department, who is notifying us of a grant amount of $55,380 in federal funds, and also requiring a 25% county match for the period of May 1, 2018 to April 30th, 2019. We also have a proposed bill for an ordinance dated November 2nd, 2018 from the prosecuting attorney requesting authorization for the mayor of the county of Maui to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Department of the Attorney General, State of Hawaii. Mr. Boz, any opening comments?
No, Mr. Chair, same thing, just different grant.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rivera, any comments, please?
Not at this time. I'm prepared to answer any questions regarding this position.
Okay, thank you very much, prosecuting attorney. Okay, Ms. Sugimura.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Atai.
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. Crivello. Mr. Carroll. Ms. King, any questions?
Just real quickly, so the matching funds that are required, are those also, are we able to use existing operations or personnel for the matching funds?
In this instance, this would cover the fringe benefits, the 25% match, and that would allow that investigator to not only handle domestic violence cases, but as also any other crimes involving victims.
Okay, so the county match is in addition to?
It would be in addition, yes.
Okay. Okay, that's 18,000. All right, thank you.
Thank you for that. Ms. Cochran?
No, sure.
Anything else, Ms. Sugimura? Nope. The chair, as with the previous item, members will ask staff to hand out, okay, and you should have it with you, a proposed revised ordinance. Again, the chair is recommending that one, we adjust the title once more by adding the specific project. So after State of Hawaii in the title, the chair is recommending parentheses, domestic violence investigation grant project parentheses. As in the previous legislation, under the purpose, on line 3, the sentence would now read, let me just start from the Department of the Attorney General, comma, State of Hawaii, agency, comma, through the Crime Prevention and Justice Assistance Division, comma, will insert as a part of the amendment the phrase for the domestic violence investigation grant project, comma. That is the addition. And then we'll continue with the rest of the proposal as currently written. Okay, any questions, members? We'll
Chair.
ask Ms. Yes, Ms. King.
Yeah, so the 18,000 is coming out of carryover savings? Where does that come from?
Mr. Boz.
No, Mr. Chair, the monies for this matching are already included in the Department of Prosecuting Attorney's budget, and so that they're utilizing existing general fund monies to match instead of asking for additional monies.
Okay, thank you. Ms. King?
Yeah, well, they weren't, so if they weren't, I was just trying to figure out where, they weren't identified for this at some point. So is that considered carryover savings from someplace else? Or what fund do they come out of when they go into something?
Mr. Buzz.
Maybe the department has more detailed information, but typically, like the last one, it's matching for something that they're already doing. The state's been pretty flexible. If it's something they're already doing, like the victim witness counseling, they're already doing that. They already have employees that are doing that, and so they can utilize that as what's considered a match, even though they're not putting in the additional cash for it. This specific one, the department may have more information on.
Okay, yeah, that was my previous question. They said they know they weren't utilized, so they are putting in additional cash. I'm just wondering where that's coming from.
Okay, well, why don't you identify yourself and share your comments? Yeah, that would be helpful.
There's a microphone.
Yeah, so just press the button. A green light will go on. Yeah, if you would please introduce yourself. And share
Aloha,
your
my name
comments.
is Wendy Nabriga. I'm the administrative officer at the prosecuting attorney's office. So the matching funds are existing county employees that were using those funds for matching.
Okay. That was my original question.
So it's
and then
not
I was told
additional,
no, so-
yeah, it's not additional monies
Okay.
that we're asking for. It's existing funds that we have.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions members would like to pose at this time? Okay, so we're going to go through the same steps as we did with the other one. The chair will entertain a motion to move forward to council. Recommending to council a bill for an ordinance passage for first reading be ordered to print, authorizing the mayor of the county of Maui to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Attorney General, State of Hawaii, filing our appropriate communications, allowing staff to make non-substantive adjustments.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sugimura, seconded by Ms. Cochran. The chair will entertain a motion to amend by substitution the handout that the chair had presented to the committee regarding adjustments to the title, as well as a revision to the first sentence under section 1, purpose.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sugimura, seconded by Ms. Cochran. Is there any further discussion, members, on the motion to amend? With none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes, 2 excused. Back to the main motion as amended. Any further comments, members? With none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes, 2 excused. Thank you very much, Ms. Nobriga, Mr. Rivera. Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, you know what, I'm gonna take up BF 183 also at this time with no objections.
No objections.
Okay, BF 183 is what we referred to comments on, members, this morning. We have County Communication 18-369 from the Budget Office that would amend, with a proposed bill to amend Appendix A, Part 2, as regarding a request for land appraisal of lots in Makalai, Hana, Maui. And again, members, there is no additional funds being requested. They are requesting a revision of the scope as regards to a potential assessment. Mr. Boz, any opening comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so as Mr. Crawford identified in his testimony, we are amending this ordinance. This proposed bill does amend the ordinance to add additional TMKs, and there was a clarification on some other TMKs. In our submittal dated October 31st, there is a letter from Keauhali'i that is basically their grant application in this initial phase of this that provides for, and then we did add a map there so that you can see there are two different sections that are contiguous, but wanted to just make sure I identified. Maka'alai is the southern portion, I guess more easterly, and then Mokai is the little bit more westerly portion, as closer to Hana Bay side, if you want to call it that. And then so all of those TMKs are identified in this appraisal. We do anticipate, the administration does anticipate giving a grant to Keauhali'i to do this appraisal. There may be additional costs than $20,000, but they've been, as identified in the response letter, doing fundraising and have additional sources of funds for this project as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Carroll, any comments on this item?
Just that I think it's clear what everybody has before them and what the community really desires today. And I would just ask for my fellow council members' support. It's something, the first steps in preserving a really serious open space site. It's a large site, and it's something that we really want to pass on to future generations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Atai, any comments, questions?
No questions, Chair. Just in full support.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Limura.
I think we heard about this loud and clear from the community during the budget session, so I'm glad to support Mr. Carroll's efforts for his community.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cochran? Thank you. We welcome Mr. Guzman. We're on item
Yes, sir.
BF 183.
Thank you,
Ms.
Chair.
King, any questions?
No, just want to clarify and confirm that there's no additional funding being requested, and appreciate the community for doing their own fundraising on top of what we're providing.
Mr. Buzz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Member King. The $20,000 was the original appropriations. We're just adding the TMKs.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions members need to pose or any comments? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to recommend to council a bill for an ordinance amending Appendix A of the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Part 2, Special Purpose Revenues, Schedule of Revolving Special Funds for fiscal year 2019, Open Space, Natural Resources, Cultural Resources, and Scenic Views Preservation Fund, filing of any appropriate communications and allowing staff to make any non-substantive adjustments.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Ms. Sugimura. Is there further discussion on the matter, members?
Sure.
Ms. Cochran.
Thank you very much in support. And sorry if Mr. Boz, you mentioned this, but the one deletion or the bracketed out sections, what happened there? Because it was originally in, but now we're bracketing those TMKs out.
Mr. Boz.
Yeah, so if it's kind of hard to look at just in this one, but the first section of the TMK is it was 2, and then 1 for 12, and that had identified those parcels 17, 27, 28, 29 that are bracketed out. If you look, those are actually added to, because it's 2, 1, 4, 10 is what the plat what the plat number should have been when we originally did the appropriation. We weren't. It was identified differently, and so it's actually so this is just correcting those same parcels are included. It's just a correction of the plat number. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so they're still there. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions, members? Any further comments? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 7 ayes, 2 excused. Thank you very much, members. Okay, let's go back to, let's see. Okay, may I take you to BF 76? We are in receipt of County Communication 17-335 for your chairman regarding the Wailuku Civic Complex. We also now have a correspondence dated November 7th from the Budget Office with a proposed bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Management, Wailuku Civic Complex, total capital improvement project appropriations, and total appropriations operating and capital improvement projects. The purpose of the proposed bill is to amend the fiscal year 2019 budget, 1, by increasing estimated revenues for the bond fund by $40 million. 2, amending section 4.D.1.B-1, Department of Management, Wailuku Kahaloi Community Plan Area, Government Facilities, Bond Fund, by increasing the appropriation for the Wailuku Civic Complex by $40 million, and 3, adjusting totals accordingly. Accompanying it is a proposed bill for an ordinance amending ordinance number 4858, bill number 54, 2018, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale and delivery of said bonds, Department of Management, Wailuku Civic Complex. Third, a bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix C, as in Charlie, Capital Improvement Projects, Department of Management, Wailuku Kahaloi Community Plan Area, Wailuku Civic Complex. Okay, thank you. Mr. Boz, any opening comments?
Mr. Chair, just this was the amount that was originally requested in the FY19 Mayor's proposed budget. Unfortunately, the program manager is not available. She had a prior commitment and not available to be here today. So I can try to answer any questions you may have, but I may not be able to. May have to discuss that. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boz. Well, we've talked about this for years, so the members know this project. So I can tell you Ms. Wade, who we had requested, is currently meeting with State of Hawaii representatives on the state's planning and projections on how they will participate in the civic complex project. So she's meeting with state representatives, including the judiciary. Since the Chief Justice is interested in helping to move the judiciary portion forward within the state complex. So that's where she's at this morning. Okay. The chair decided to post this because I think there's things we should consider. Again, we will be discussing this. So we'll be opening up to all of you for your comments, your questions. I would say this time I'm open to considering this request for a couple of things. One, seeing the status of construction projects in this county, you are well aware the state is finishing up big projects, especially at the airport. There is a concern about whether or not employment base will continue at the levels. But this is a good time for us to go out and seek potential bids to see if we can be the recipient of better bid results. If it's not, we won't agree to the bid, and we'll continue to work the process. But if there is opportunities, we should consider it. Another reason, members, is I see this as a new big engine called civic development. And for me, after hearing the concerns of the general community of Central Maui, I think this project will help us move forward regional planning faster and better. I think through this project, we'll be able to address the needs of the Waikapu community, Pi'ihana, Waihe, Wai'ehu, because there's big regional planning we have to do. One is, of course, traffic, our road system. And if this project is going to work, we're going to need to have a smart regional road plan. Okay. But also for the road plan to work, we need a smart regional housing plan of where we're going to put the housing with the road system. Okay. We do know that we're going to need to make adjustments in Pi'ihana, Happy Valley area. It is a bottleneck right now. We cannot have everything go on Beach Road. Now, whether or not we do that additional bridge across Iao or Wailuku River is to still be determined. But regional planning will help us look at it in the correct perspective and not be so narrow in our review that we might tend to forget other requirements of abutting properties or neighborhoods. So those are some of the things I'm thinking about. I think we have the opportunity. And so there's many ways we've done in the past. We can authorize the bond, we can appropriate the bond and withhold the authorization until we're satisfied. We can move it forward. We can defer this. But I think it's good timing for us to see whether or not, with the current environment of what's happening out there, it's smart for the county to place itself in a position to potentially negotiate a better price. Okay, because for me, this is how we're going to really make sure we take care of our abutting communities that will be impacted by a project. So that's what I'm looking at this morning, why I'm willing to ask you to consider this, and it's something I believe we can afford. I've worked hard through my years of service to make sure that we have the opportunities when it arises to take a consideration. And that's what we have today, a opportunity of a consideration. So I'll leave it at that. If you have questions, the performers are looking good. If anything, from the last report we had from Ms. Wade, interest of the private sector in investing in Wailuku is advancing faster than I had projected, which is good in one sense. But for that to work, though, I still believe now we really got to get moving on the regional planning, the roads, and the housing. And with that, we have to take into account the water, the sewer, everything else that's involved. So I'm open to your questions. I'm open to your comments. Again, this is why we agendized this. And again, part of this is what you see next on our item is, again, BF 176, how we're going to deal with certain debt and certain projects. So I'm open to your questions or comments at this time. I'll start with Mr. Carroll. Do you have any questions or comments you'd like to pose, sir?
Thank you, Chair. I think what we have before us today is appropriate, and I think it should be pursued. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Crivello, any questions you want to ask of us?
Thank you, Chair. My question would be more, as you mentioned, regional plans and plans for the Wailuku or all of this central area is, are there plans or designs and phases already in place for all of this funding that we're putting into?
I would say we would need to adjust scope of the project to really encompass and broaden it to the regional component, Ms. Crivello. But the county has independent, separate plans for various things. Kamehameha Avenue widening and extension. That was always planned as a 4-lane connector. Okay, we have the Waiale connector. So my thing is, instead of us keep looking at it in a very narrow sense and only when maybe a 2-1H project comes up, as I stated at the last meeting, I prefer that those applicants implement our regional plan for the road than have us always trying to see how to make their presentation work for the region. You know, for me, that's, at this point in time, where with this county, that's ass backwards, to be blunt.
Okay, that's all I have for now, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Atai, questions or comments, concerns?
No comment.
Thank you. Ms. Sugimura.
Chair, I agree with you. I think that in the discussion of another 201 or 201H project, you mentioned having a regional road infrastructure plan. And so are you saying that this project then would take on that study? Or?
I would say this would be the hub of how we're going to be able to justify and connect the dots for the other regional components that I think is critical to make this as successful as we'd like it to be and beneficial to all sectors of the community, whether it's the resident sector, the business sector, the civic sector, nonprofit sector. I think if we do this smart, and I believe we can, we'll get a better product in the long run. Because just like the budget, I've always asked you to try to see it as part of the bigger picture and just focus on that one request. So I'm just asking us to look at it from a regional standpoint also than just the civic complex. Because we have opportunities. We have by executive order land that is currently under Halimakua. We know there's interest of St. Anthony School under the educational component for expansion and growth. So, you know, it's a good time for Wailuku to talk about where Wailuku wants to go as part of, one, civic development as a county seat, but two, as a community. So I find it kind of exciting because they have an engine. I wish, you know, that will help provide employment, revenues, and other, what I consider other community benefits. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, I think your assessment is correct. Recently, over the weekend, spoke to someone who was working extensively on the Conrack, I guess the airport improvements, but that, as you can tell, is starting to be finalized, and there's some anxiety out there in terms of what's next. So I support your broad vision in understanding that this is a good time to think about the community at large, jobs, and what this is doing. I mean, I know we can feel the excitement out there that's happening with this potential project coming up, and the neighboring properties and what's happening with their values and assessments. So yeah, we are part of the community, and this will help drive some economic development or revitalization. But really the focus and the reach is greater than this little, right now, 280 or 76 parking stalls that's in the middle of the municipal parking lot, but it'll create a broader reach. So I agree with I appreciate your philosophy, and I look forward to just hearing the other members. But thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Cochran, questions, comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I remember the discussion, wee hours of the night, early morning about this. And I think, this additional is premature at this time, Chair, actually. There's so much more to be discussed. And having been through the gauntlet out there during this campaign season, people were highlighting this particular item, actually. And they would, if we're looking to expend this type of money, they sure as heck would prefer it to go, as you mentioned in your opening comments, yeah, for housing. Yes, for infrastructure. Yes, for current issues that we face and drive through each and every day. This is something, yes, to look at. There's, a big chunk of money already set aside for it to continue. But I think to try and fulfill the full amount at this time is premature. And I feel there's more top priority needs for $40 million at this time. So those are my, comments at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no, thank you. Mr. Guzman?
Thank you, Chair. I do appreciate and see your vision as well. My only concern is the staging or the phasing of the appropriations of the money. You mentioned earlier in your statement that we would have options, and I need, if you could refresh my memory as to those options. It would be appropriate, but then if we appropriate, we still have the option to authorize, or we could authorize and we can appropriate and authorize. So those are two options. And so these two options, starting with the first one, to appropriate and not authorize the bond, what effect does that, what are the subsequent consequences of those, and what are the benefits for us to move that route? I guess that's a question. And where are we at with the existing monies that we appropriated and authorized? I guess that's a question for Ms. Wade. The second option would be appropriate, not authorize. So what are the consequences and benefits if we go that route? I kind of want to see what exactly the two options are and what that would entail, and maybe more details of it. Because if we were, I do recall that discussion late at night during budget, and it seemed okay that we were okay with the amount of money that we authorized, as well as the bonding of the authorization of that. So what has changed from that point to now? And that's only been a few months. I kind of want to see the path and make a clear decision on those two options. Thank you.
No, I think you have very good comments there, Mr. Guzman. And I would say, one, again, we are pleasantly surprised at the private sector's interest in reinvesting. I am maybe overwhelmed is not the right word, but I'm pretty I'm pleasantly surprised by the state's interest to move forward, especially from the judiciary standpoint, that they're willing to meet with our our Ms. Wade this morning to talk about their participation in the civic redevelopment. Two, I think, as I understand the current status with our current appropriation, that the bidding has, the RFPs have gone out. The response has been very good. They're reviewing the proposals. I believe we are ready to make certain decisions on the initial appropriations to move forward, and that will start our subsurface project, the work on the subsurface requirements of the area. And so that, I would say, is moving along right currently. That's where it's at. They're ready to sign contracts shortly.
Is it something that these third-party investors or the state is looking for more assurances from us?
No.
Or
for me, I'm just looking at it more from what is our potential financial benefits by putting this appropriation in a position that we can go and solicit those proposals. And if it's not good enough, Mr. Guzman, we will move forward.
And if we were to go with the second option, which is appropriate
and not authorize,
but not authorize,
the administration would be required to return to council
for the authorization.
For the authorization.
Right. Okay. So, but then you still have the you still are displaying that to others outside, or even to the state, that we are serious, we are appropriating the money, but at this time we're holding off on the authorization.
This 40 would be basically to go verticals, yeah?
Right,
the initial funds was to take care of our subsurface requirement, the water lines, the sewer lines, street adjustments, drainage. The key one is, of course, drainage, like on Vineyard. We all know the Vineyard drainage concerns and challenges. So the initial funding will create some disturbance in our area, definitely. Unfortunately, it's mostly underground work. You don't see the benefit of the project till we start going vertical. And this second request is for us to go vertical. Yeah. And so, again, my thing is presented to you, the benefits of timing, where we are in the process, people, the general community's understanding of where this project is. And I'm happy that Ms. Wade worked it hard, because if anything, I got the reverse phone call. How much more meetings you guys plan to do? We've been hearing about it. You know, it's not like, where's the meeting? These people saying, we've had so many meetings. When are you going to do the project? So I was kind of pleasantly surprised that this is one time we've been doing very good outreach with people like Ramsey Tom that does the cultural component for us, or whether it be the engineers portion for the subsurface. I think we have a decent team currently in place. So again, whether we move forward or not is part of the discussion today. Mr. Guzman.
Nothing further. I almost called you Your Honor by getting back into that mode. But Chair, at this point, and this is how I feel personally, I think that I'd be open to appropriating the money, but not authorizing the bond, because at least we're halfway there, and if it's premature, we can always hold back, or if we need to, we can authorize the bond. So if the state or third parties need that extra incentive for us to show that we're serious about it for leveraging purposes for the contracts and bidding portion of it, yeah, I don't have a problem appropriating, but at this time to hold back on the authorization. That's where I stand right now.
No, I appreciate your concerns and your reservations, as well as the areas you're willing to support. So thank you for that. Ms. King?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's premature to even appropriate the funds. We appropriated $40 million for the current work, and It's unfortunate that Ms. Wade couldn't be here, but I'd like to get a report on how that money's being spent. What, if we put out RFPs and we haven't actually fulfilled, the work hasn't actually started, then why are we jumping ahead to the next 40 million at this time and obligating the next council and the next mayor for this this expense? But I also have heard from a lot of people in that community, in the Wailuku community, that they don't feel like that the meetings have been inclusive of all citizens who live there, that they've been sort of top-heavy on the planner side. And so I'm not sure that my perspective is not that people are saying, when are we going to move ahead? They're saying, wait, what are we even doing? What does the design look like? What is the economic development return proposition, which I haven't seen myself? And I really think that we need to, if it's a good idea today, it'll be a good idea in a couple of months. And I think we need to defer this item until we get more information on where the money that we already appropriated has gone or is going. I don't see us being able to, as a county, spend the additional 40 million in this same budget session anyway. So I think it can wait till the next session. If it's a good idea now, it'll be a good idea then. So I'm in favor of deferring this item to the next budget, to the next year actually, or at least until we can get a presentation from the head of this project to tell us where we're at, give us a firm, we're going to spend $80 million. What are we expecting to get back? And how long is it going to take us to recover that $80 million? If we're going to take that money and put it into economic development, there should be a return proposition. So that's my feeling, and I would hope that we would all look at this really pragmatically and understand that in this current budget session, the previous year when we were budgeting for this year, there was a reason why we said, okay, we can't spend the entire amount. Let's just get the infrastructure part done with the 40 million and take a look at it when we get closer. I also kind of feel I want to address the issue of jobs, because we're at 2% unemployment. And if we are approaching a time where we're going to need more jobs, let's get a report on that before we just conjecture on what's happening and what's not happening. And one of the things that happens if unemployment goes up, then we know also that the cost of construction comes down. As long as you keep building stuff during this low unemployment that we have, we end up getting higher bids. And I know that from the business side, and I've experienced it because people are busy. So I think we need to take all of that into account, ask our project director and the departments to give us a report on this, on where we're at, where we're going. I don't think it's necessarily, I think you said yourself that it's not something that the state is holding us to, put this 40 million or we're not going to talk to you. They're already talking to Ms. Wade right now. So let's look at this a little more in detail and try to figure out what's going on right now before we jump ahead with another 40 million. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone else? I would just, again, I appreciate your reservations for some. For me, I see this again as a potential engine that will help generate revenues to pay for things we're going to need to consider. Okay. It's easy to spend money. We need to find ways of generating money, because all the affordable housing talk will be just that, talk. If you cannot pay for it, it'll be talk. Okay. So for me, members, I'm trying to find ways of how we're going to pay for things. Yeah. And one of it is, for me, changing a paradigm. I'm looking at civic development as one that will provide opportunities of different type of employment, not visitor industry type of positions. I think civic development can help provide the type of positions and employment opportunities that one job should be sufficient to qualify as a middle class community resident that can afford the affordable house without subsidies. Okay? Because that is what's going to kill this county, subsidies that we cannot pay because there's no engine to pay for it, but easy to spend, okay? And that's cash. So for me, members, yeah, we can defer this, we can delay changing our paradigm, but it ain't gonna change the outcome out there. Maybe we can wait 2 to 4 years. Can our people wait out there 2 to 4 years? Might not even be our people out there in 2 to 4 years. Because our people might need to move. So it's not an easy thing, members, again, and that's why we're having this discussion, yeah. But I'm not, part of leadership is taking a chance, some educated, smart chance. Okay, because it's easy to do nothing. So I'm going to entertain a motion to you, and if it goes, it goes, it doesn't, it doesn't. To recommend to council that we appropriate the 40 million and withhold the authorization.
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Ms. Sugimura, to move forward 40 million withholding authorization, which means it must return to council to get bond authorization. We are placing this in the budget. That's the only thing we are doing, and providing the appropriate financial parameters for additional discussions. So that is what is before us, members. Okay. Any further discussion?
Chair.
Ms. King.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm opposed to this. I'm not sure what the point is of appropriating without authorizing, but I think it can be appropriated and authorized at some later date if it's a good idea. But I do also want to stress that, I understand the idea of looking at this as an economic engine, but you don't build something that's $80 million. You don't even build something that's $20 million without a business plan. You have to look at what the return on investment is, and that's what I'm asking for. We have not seen we have not seen proof that this will be an economic engine. I'd like to see what the business plan is for this, so we can, if we're going to appropriate 80 million, how long is it going to take us to get that 80 million back in through this economic engine? How long is it going to take us to actually get more than that 80 million back, which is what you usually plan when you're in business? So that's my grave reservation, and I hope that the council members will take that into consideration, that there's not, if we're going to withhold authorization, let's just wait on the whole idea of moving forward with the appropriation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Hearing Mr. Guzman's comments, I believe my motion would be inappropriate at this time. So, Mr. Carroll, if you and Ms. Sugimura would withdraw the motion, I'm going to make another recommendation that I think is more appropriate. Thank you. Okay. So, members, what I'm going to recommend is that when you look at your agenda under BF 76, under number 2, which is part of the description of our day's work, you will see ABC, 2A, 2B, 2C. 3 proposed bills for an ordinance as it relates to this subject. The chair is going to recommend a motion to move to council for passage on first reading, be ordered to print only 2A, a bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Management, Wailuku Civic Complex, total capital improvement project appropriations and total appropriations, operating and capital improvement projects. Okay. And that, as the purpose is, would increase the estimated revenues by 40 million, adjust the appropriation for the project by 40 million. And 2C, a proposed bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix C, as in Charlie, Capital Improvement Projects, Department of Management, Wailuku Community Plan Area, Wailuku Civic Complex, and this will place the project in Appendix C by increasing the project by 40 million. What I will not recommend moving forward is the bill for an ordinance under B, which is authorizing the bond. That will stay within the committee, which means the money cannot go forward until it's authorized by council at a future date. Okay, so that is what the chair is recommending.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Ms. Sugimura. Again, members, the motion is to only move 2A and 2C forward. Okay. Any further discussion, members? Mr. Guzman.
Thank you, Chair. I strategically, and this is just my opinion, strategically, I think this is the better move, what you're proposing, and because I believe it's strategically viable. You have the next council that is going to actually hold the authority to authorize the bond, and they can make that determination. I think it's beneficial on our part just to show that, look, we did appropriate a reasonable amount to cover the complete construction and the design and build. So I don't see any harm in this. I see more benefit than it is objectively harmful to the project. And it really does give the next council, which is basically, look, there's going to be 6 of us off this council right now in this room. It gives the next council that authorization either to move forward or not. But we've given them the intent. And we've given them the tools to either move forward or not. So I think this is a better, safe way to go. So I will support that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Ms. Crivello?
Thank you, Chair. So just clarification, you're saying 2B and 2C, right?
2A and 2C.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, 2A. Yeah, B is the authorization.
Okay,
We are
B
not-
is the
Yeah, we are not going to
bonds.
consider the,
Okay, so,
that bill.
and then, for me, I'd really like to see the efforts of infrastructure replacements throughout Wailuku. I would think that's one of the oldest things. So I think this approach is, and then putting it on the new council is more appropriate at this time. So I can support it in this manner at this time. But I have to say, I do question how we're setting aside this, 80 million or 84 million, and hopefully we have a full plan to go into the different phases sooner than later, just to accompany what you're trying to put forth. That would be of benefit to the island as a whole. And just to go back on your comments on your regional plan for the design, I think it's most important for us to look at how we're going to support the compatibility of building homes for our residents, and this will truly generate the revenues we need. And I value the private sector's partnership. However, when it comes to infrastructure, sometimes we have to look at whose kuleana it really is to build the infrastructure, because it's not only that segment of that home development that will be utilizing that particular highway or roadway. Anyway, that's just my spiel. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to share a comment? Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not in favor, as I stated in my opening comments. I'm just trying to recall if I've ever seen in our budget this kind of dollar amount in a CIP, but so the number's there, but there's no authorization for it, but yet it's in a budget ordinance. It's in the budget ordinance. How does this work? How's this gonna work? It's like a placeholder dollar that's gonna be here, but yet the money we all know sitting here is not authorized, but it's there. So just, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense right now. Is this Mr. Boz can explain? Do we have examples of that in our budget right now?
We've been doing this for the last 16 years, Ms. Cochran. Mr. Boz, any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't recall one specifically in the FY19 budget, but yes, you're correct. In years past, there has been appropriations made with a withholding of the authorization to issue the bond. So basically, the way the administration handles that is that we take it as a direction that we're moving forward with the project rather than just saying, no, we're not going to do that project. And coming back once the details then are better laid out and we have a better understanding of how the money is going to be spent, then we'll come back specifically for that authorization. So as long as I've been budget director, I've seen more than a handful of projects that were held, and pretty large. Usually it's larger sums because it is something that, it's something that the council will then show an initiative that they support the general idea of it, but they want more information, right? So it's that final decision making is going to still be up to the council.
Right. Right, but I think $40 million is saying, hey, we kind of like the idea right now. Let's get more information, as Ms. King has been mentioning. Let's see a full-blown plan, return on investment, et cetera, before doubling that amount. I mean, that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. 40 million, that's nothing to sneeze at right now. So, I mean, I think we're putting our best efforts forward to say, hey, this is, important, 40 million worth, but to just double it up right now with this unauthorized, it just boggles my brain. So, anyhow, I mean, yeah, it's strange at this time for me to see this happening. Anyhow, okay, thank you. Still has to go through full council, so we'll see what the public gets to say about it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, in this budget, we did the same thing for the West Maui Recycle Water System expansion. We did the same thing for the War Memorial paving. We authorized the projects, we deferred the authorization. Okay, so we've been doing this, like I said, for about 16 years that I've been on council as a way for us to get additional information of projects we're generally supportive of. So this is nothing new for us. Any other comments, members, on the motion before you? Ms. King.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I speak against the motion, and just to reiterate, I think it should be, as Mr. Guzman said, 6 of us are going off, and we're trying to show support for something that the next council may or may not support as far as the vertical section of it. I fully support the infrastructure, which we funded in this budget, and I'd like to see how that's going and get a report on. But I think the infrastructure is totally needed. That money's already in there for that. As you said, the RFPs have gone out. We still don't know how that construction is going to go. But I'm not at a point where I'm comfortable with what I've seen as the vertical design, and I've been told by a couple of people that was just preliminary. We don't really have a firm draft of the design. We don't really have a good buy-in from the community on that. And so if this money is going to sit there to go vertical and we're going to say that we approve this project, we should know what the project is, and we should know what we're intending to get back out of the project. And I think it's irresponsible to to go ahead and approve this money in any form until we know those things and we have that full report. I mean, it's unfortunate that Ms. Wade is not here to let us know really what's going on one way or the other. But all I can go by is the last few meetings that I've seen her at, that we've seen preliminary designs that I've now been told by people those were just preliminary designs. And a lot of people that are telling me in the community that that's going to change the character of Wailuku. They don't want to see a structure that tall. They don't want to see that much focus on parking. And so I think we need to revisit the whole idea of what is vertical. I'm totally supportive of everything underground and of needing new you know, the utility hookups, the water pipes, the roads and everything. But I'm not satisfied with what I've seen as the vertical. And I think I brought this up when they showed us a design over a year ago. Is it, you know, and they explained it as needing to fit into the community. I said, well, how does that fit into the community? And they said, well, we're still working on it. So, so that's where I sit, and I would really like the opportunity to have a fuller discussion at some point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Guzman.
Thank you, Chair. You know, just to reiterate what Mr. Boz has said about the process of appropriating the money and then coming back to the council for authorization. That is so much similar. I mean, everyone who's been on the council and has had experience with this knows that's the safe route to take. If you compare it to, let's say, the open space, which I'm very, very familiar with, the open space funding that we put into money and we appropriate for the purchase of certain properties. Well, we put a certain amount of money and we designate that as being appropriated to purchase several properties that are still listed in the open space fund. Well, even though we appropriated the money, we didn't spend the money until we got the details of the property, and then it was brought forward to us. The fact that we put it in the budget for a certain amount to appropriate gave the nexus and the enabling ability for the administration to go out and get the details, knowing that that we are on the council intending to purchase it for a certain amount that has been appropriated in the open space fund. So they do come back and they give us some appraisals, they give us the decisions, and then the council decides to authorize the release of the money or even add more money into paying or buying for the property. So for me, it's just this appropriation without authorization clearly just gives an enabling ability for the administration to move forward. And it doesn't harm our budget, because we're not going to spend $40 million right off the bat, you know, in this next budget. It's just showing the intent. And clearly the safeguards are there so that it comes back to the council, this new council that will come up and say, yeah, we authorize it. They can never authorize it. It'll just die, the 40,000. And that's the way I look at it. 40 billion, sorry, million. Oh, billion. But yeah, and I'm okay, you know, because I feel that there's some safeguards in place, and it's just strategically setting forth the stage. We're building the foundation. We're setting up the negotiations. We're setting it up. So I'm okay, you know, with moving forward on the way it's being presented.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Ms. Tatai.
Thank you, Chair. I stand in opposition to this, and I disagree with what Member Guzman just shared. We've already committed to 44 million.
Mm-hmm.
We've already, that's a statement already, that we're committed 44 million. Now you're asking for an additional 40 million. This total project is going to be 84,195,000 as of today, the request. We don't know what the later increased bids are going to be. Along the camping trail, we heard a lot of the people say, yeah, it's about timing, it's about evolution, it's about what's important for the community. A lot of people suggested, hey, forget putting 40 million into a parking lot, put 40 million into an affordable housing fund. And so, you know, I hear both sides, but the statement already, we've already pushed in 44 million. To ask and question whether we're committed, we're already telling them we're at the table. I think knowing that 6 of us will not be here, I think the best for today is to not move this forward and give that decision to the new council. We're already in with 44 million. I stand opposed.
Thank you. Ms. Sugimura?
Thank you, Chair. So I support this. I was just kind of reflecting on all the discussions we've had, before this committee regarding the project. And if I recall, the EA was submitted, and it was talked about in terms of what benefits this project would bring it really in terms of real property tax is what we like to talk about, right? So by looking at the increase of property values of which we saw when we purchased some of the neighboring parcels where the appropriation was, you know, larger than what we had hoped for, but it was an indication of this is working, you know, it is the economic engine concept is working. So a business plan, so to speak, was talked about, it was submitted for us to review, and so some discussion on that, you know, did happen. I like the idea of appropriate and not authorizing for, you know, what the members have spoken about, because then it'll come before the council and maybe some of these questions could be answered. Having worked on Wailuku revitalization project since 1999 or so, when I worked on it under previous administrations, I mean, this is something that was asked for, that has been worked on, you know, through Wailuku Main Street and all the other organizations forward that have been working on things in Wailuku. And it's exciting for me to see this. And I agree with Mr. Guzman in terms of appropriating, not authorizing, so that there can be more discussions later. But I support your direction of doing 2A and 2C. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll? Mr. Carroll, you have any questions, comments?
Thank you, Chair. I support the motion on the floor. I hear all of the arguments against and why we should delay. And I think the public's tired of us looking for reasons to delay. We have something before us now that hopefully can promote action. And I think it is appropriate. I won't say any more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Crivello?
Thank you, Chair. So I believe I can appreciate the other projects you've mentioned where we've gone through the same process, and also the kind of funding we've appropriated. But I also would like to make mention, I hear Mr. Atai where he's saying that we are going to be replacing with a new council. And yes, but we still have our kuleana until we outpower, you know. So do I say, because I will no longer be sitting in here, that I will shirk my responsibilities and accept what may not be a popular decision or maybe a popular decision, but it is for us to look at the benefits that we may have. Yes, this is controversial. This may not be controversial, but I'd like to look at the long term as to how this fits in with the vibrancy that we want to make available for our residents. people have their concerns, but when you talk to people of Maui as residents, they're excited as to what may become of this project. I like the approach that you're doing. If it wasn't this approach, perhaps I would be very cautious about deciding to support it. But I think the intent that we have here will still include the new council. But for now, we have to make a decision on how we want to make forward. So I just needed to make those comments, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any further last questions or comments? Okay, if not, the chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, the chair counts 5 ayes, 3 noes, 1 excuse. Motion passes.
Get a roll call vote, please, Chair.
No, the chair will mark Ms. Datai, Ms. Cochran, and Ms. King as no. All others in the affirmative. Mr. White excused. Okay, 5, 3, 1. Moves forward. Okay, we're going to go back to the next item, which is BF 176. This is under the Series 2018 General Obligation Bond Official Statement and amending the fiscal year 2019 budget to address disqualified general obligation bond projects. We're in receipt of communication 18-362 from the Director of Finance, transmitting a copy of the Series 2018 GO Bond Official Statements with the synopsis of sale results. We also have County Communication 18-364 from Director of Finance, informing us the sale of $106.315 million in general obligation bonds in Series A, B, C, D, and E of 2018. November 7th, 2018, from the Budget Director, we have transmitting the following: a proposed bill entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Amending the Fiscal Year 2019 Budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Finance, countywide costs, reimbursement to the general fund for projects disqualified from tax-exempt bond issuance, total operating appropriations, total capital improvement project appropriations, and total appropriations, operating and capital improvement projects. So in the proposed bill, members, you'll see a couple of things. 1, increasing estimated revenues. 4, carryover savings from the general fund by 1.5 for the bond, lapse bond fund by 6.334 million, amending section 3.4.f, Department of Finance, countywide costs, adding an appropriation entitled reimbursement to the general fund for projects disqualified from taxes and bond issuance in the amount of $7.834 million, amending section 4.D.1.B, Department of Management, Wailuku-Kaului Community Plan Area, Government Facilities, Wailuku Civic Complex by increasing the appropriation for the bond fund by $2 million, deleting the appropriation from the general fund, amending section 4.E.4.A, Department of Parks and Recreation, Lanai Community Plan Area, changing the funding source for the Lanai Parks Maintenance Building and Lanai Community Center Commercial Kitchen from general fund to bond fund. 5, amending section 4.E.7.8, decreasing the appropriation from the general fund for the Paia Haiku Park System by $950,000 and adding an appropriation from the bond fund for the Paia Haiku Park System for the same amount. 6, amending section 4.E.8.A, changing the appropriation for the Wells Park Master Plan implementation from general fund to bond fund. 7, plan implementation from general fund to bond fund. 7, amending section 4.E.9.A, decreasing the appropriation from the general fund for West Maui Park System by $286,000 and adding an appropriation from the bond fund for the West Maui Park System by $286,000. 8, amending section 4.F.1.A, Department of Police, countywide government facilities, changing the appropriation for countywide police facilities from general fund to bond fund in the amount of $848,000, and 9, adjusting the totals accordingly. Second, bill for an ordinance amending ordinance number 4858, bill number 54, 2018, relating to the issuance of GO bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale, and delivery of said bonds, Department of Management, Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of Police. And basically, it does the same thing, except this is in the ordinance. And finally, C, we have a certification of additional revenues for the fiscal year 2019 dated November 7, 2018 for $1.5 million in carryover savings from the general fund. Mr. Boz, any opening comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. The bill in front of you is basically what it does is provides for a resolution to the issue discussed at the prior Budget and Finance Committee meeting regarding projects that were disqualified from tax-exempt bond issuance. The proposal is taking and adding $1.5 million in cash carryover savings, as well as moving projects that we've reviewed and do qualify for bond issuance, new projects basically, switching those from cash to bond, so that those could be sold as tax-exempt bond issuance in the future, and then reimbursing the general fund's loan to the bond fund with a cash appropriation in the Department of Finance countywide costs. So we do have our Finance Director, Mr. Mark Walker, here to discuss this, and here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Director Walker, any comments, please?
Good morning, Chair, committee members. Chair, appreciate you scheduling this and moving this forward. As you remember from the last meeting, I thought it was urgent that this be taken care of. You were in receipt of my letter dated October 31st. There are different ways to skin a cat, and this is a different way, and the main thing at the end of the day is that the cat gets skinned, and the Finance Department is supportive of this bill. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Mr. Carroll, any questions you would like to pose to our departments? Thank you. Ms. Crivello?
Not at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tatai. Ms. Sugimura?
I remember the discussion and you talking about different ways of skinning the cat, so congratulations.
Thank you. Ms. Cochran? Mr. Guzman? Ms. King?
Just one question, Chair. It looks like we're increasing the bond obligation for the Wailuku Civics Complex, which we just had a big discussion on. So is that just adding a $2 million in bond and then taking the $2 million, so the total is still $44 million that we've?
Mr. Buzz,
yeah.
Because we appropriated cash, Ms. King, on this project, so that's the conversion, the cash to the bond.
Okay, so the total amount, that $44 million, is not changing?
That's correct. If you look at page 4 of the revised proposed bill, under D, Department of Management, you'll see that the 2.1B, Government Facilities, item 2 is just a general fund appropriation for Wailuku Civic Complex is bracketed out, means it's deleted from the appropriation. So then, yeah, that was moved up to that 42 in bond. So yes, the cash was moved to bond.
And that's an appropriate untaxed bond amount, or untaxable?
Yeah, so the project is eligible for issuance of bonds that are tax exempt. So yeah, that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Again, this will take care of our challenge with the disqualified projects that our bond council was made us aware of. So we appreciate this correction. This will place us back into the fiscal discipline that we pursue and we advocate for. So The chair appreciates the department's efforts in presenting this for consideration this morning. Okay, members, no further questions on this. This would, again, take care of our concern with the almost $8 million of cash challenge we had. And that is why the chair held back any cash considerations till we resolve this $8 million issue. And then from now forward, we can go back to regular considerations. So no further questions for either the department or myself. The chair will entertain. Yes,
Chair,
Ms. King.
just one question. If you and I'm not sure if this was talked about, but can you refresh my memory as to why we did the $2 million in cash for that project instead of just putting the whole thing in tax-exempt bonds in the first place?
That was my recommendation of how to fund it 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I recommended the cash.
Oh, okay, so that was a kind of a carryover recommendation. Okay. I just wasn't, is there an advantage to doing it that way versus putting everything in obligation?
It just worked out for us to resolve and close the budget for that specific fiscal year, Ms. King. Okay. And then whenever we can, you've noticed I've always advocated when we can to pay with cash and reduce the borrowing as best we can. And so we had the cash, so I proposed it that way.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Okay, if not, the chair will entertain a motion to move forward to council. Let's see, we have two bill for an ordinances. The first one is a bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the county of Maui as pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Finance, countywide costs, reimbursement to the general fund for projects disqualified from tax-exempt bond issuance, total operating appropriations, total capital improvement project appropriations, and total appropriations operating and capital improvement projects. 2, a bill for an ordinance amending ordinance number 4858, bill number 54, 2018, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui issuance, sale and delivery of said bonds, Department of Management, Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of Police, filing of any appropriate communications, as well as filing of allowing staff to make non-substantive adjustments. Oh, and before we accept those, let me restate it to be accurate. Yeah, I'm going to recommend passage of the proposed revised bill dated November 8, members. You have the last one that we got from Mr. Boz, dated November 8th. That is the proposed revised bill I'm recommending to move forward.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Ms. Sugimura. Under discussion, members, let me just give you some comment. The November 8 correspondence and the proposed bill before you that we are considering corrected three components. One, the total on page 1 for estimated revenues was corrected. 2, the section numbers of the proposed ordinance was adjusted. And 3rd, the numbering of the pages was adjusted to be accurate. So those were the revisions under the proposed revised bill, so that you're aware of. Okay, any questions? That is the motion before you as in regards to the proposed revised bills. No discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, 1 no. Okay, motion passes with 7 ayes, 1 no, Mr. Atai, and 1 excused. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to take up BF 180 at this time. BF 180, we have a communication 18-371 from Director of Finance with a proposed bill entitled a bill for an ordinance amending section 3.08.040 Maui County Code relating to investment policy. The chair views this as a housekeeping request by the department. The proposed bill for an ordinance is recommending removal of the phrase through the adoption of administrative rules in accordance with Chapter 91 Hawaii Revised Statutes or Ordinance as the means by which the Director of Finance shall establish a policy on county investments. Mr. Buzz, you have any comments?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, Director, any comments on this proposal?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, to your point, I think this is housekeeping. This is the language. It was an oversight, and this is the language we should have probably included in the first place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sugimori, questions? Thank you. Mr. Atai, questions? Ms. Crivello? Mr. Carroll? Ms. King, any questions? Okay,
No.
Mr. Guzman?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is basically requiring administrative rule, deleting. So why would you want to delete that? Because now it becomes internal. It's an internal policy rather than an administrative rule.
Mr. Uyoka?
Thank you, Chair. This is our county investment policy,
Right.
so it's probably best to be just a fluid document created by the investment policy team versus administrative rules, which require a lot of effort and time to go through the process to amend.
Yeah, but then at some point, I mean, it depends on whether or not you have, I mean, for me, it's more safe to have administrative rules because you have a vetting of the process versus an internal policy where it can be changed randomly or at will. So is that, I mean, I'm not trying to make judgments on whoever's going to be the next investment team, but in terms of checks and balances, how do you checks and balance an internal policy that could be easily changed versus an administrative rule that has to be vetted through and then public hearings required to pass? So I understand you want more flexibility, but I also want to make sure that there's checks and balances in place.
Mm-hmm. Director Walker?
Chair, thank you. Thanks for the question. I mean, we don't have administrative rules now. We are in the middle of an RFP process for an investment advisor. I think that closes in a week. We would expect to have that process completed by calendar year end. We are also regulated by HRS, which is very strict on what you can invest in. So, I mean, to your point and to the Corporation Council's point, I think it's a lot of work to go through that process when really it's so heavily regulated now. We're, you know, the things we can invest in now are so restrictive that I'm not sure it's worth the pain.
May I follow up? Thank you, Chair. So, are you saying that you've never had administrative rules in place for the
Director?
even though it's in the ordinance?
This is a new ordinance.
Yeah. So, okay, okay. Thank you. I'm fine.
And again, members, please look at your communication dated October 24th. This is from your chair to Corporation Council. And what was returned, if you notice on that attachment, is that under investment policy A1, the revision is on the proposed revised is the Director of Finance shall establish a policy in county investments and may adopt administrative rules. Okay, so it is still an option for the department that they have a choice or an option to create if needed. Mr. Guzman?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I appreciate that, and I like the wording in there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. King.
Chair, yeah, no, just to clarify, because so this is all a brand new bill, but it's a revision of something that was proposed earlier. That's why it's in Ramsey format. But you know, my understanding of administrative rules is they don't have to get approved by council. So,
that is correct.
So they're all internal anyway. And this is what this bill is doing is it's giving them the new mayor, administrator, the option of saying, well, I want administrative rules for this, or I don't because I trust you guys and what you're doing. You make your rules through your committee. So, and that even if he made administrative rules, or he or she, or that still wouldn't come to us.
Correct,
Yeah,
Ms. King. Yeah, they are required to go through an open administrative process that requires public notification of the proposed rule before they can adopt the rule as part of their policy.
Okay, but that's, what we're doing is we're giving it up to the top administrator to make that judgment of whether they want, that
Right.
person wants it in administrative rules or not.
Right, and then
Okay.
the council's, new money committee can always
Okay.
use its oversight authority to bring in the department and have them explain the.
Yeah, no, I don't
why.
have a problem with it. I just wanted to clarify because I've never seen administrative rules. We've talked about them, but we don't
Right.
approve them.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Anyone else, members? Okay, we have a motion on the floor? No. Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to move to council passage on first reading, be ordered to print a bill for an ordinance amending section 3.08.040 Maui County Code relating to investment policy.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kyle, seconded by Ms. Sugimura. The chair will now entertain a motion to amend by substituting what is on the attachment of the October 24, 2018 communication from your chair to Corporation Council. And with that, attach a proposed revised ordinance that was signed off by Corporation Council. That would, is the motion your chair is willing to entertain to amend.
Also move.
Okay. Second? Yeah, thank you. Motion to amend by Ms. Sugimura, seconded by Ms. Cochran. And again, the amendment will allow the department to consider administrative rules through the director. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes with 8 ayes, 1 excuse. Thank you very much, Director. Okay. Pardon me. Oh, well, we're back to the main motion as amended. Thank you. That's right. We got one final step to take. Any further discussion on the main motion as amended? If not, all in favor of the motions, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion passes 8 ayes, 1 excused. Okay, we have one last item to take up today, members, and we'll see what we can do with the limitations we have. I will note that this afternoon, Mr. Guzman has a critical committee meeting also at 1:30, so I am very aware of his time requirements, okay? BF 21, under Wailuku Water Company acquisition, we have communication dated September 7, 2018. We also have a correspondence dated October 10, 2018, from the mayor, Mr. Arakawa, with a proposed resolution authorizing acquisition of real property located in Wailuku, Maui, Hawaii, from Wailuku Water Company, LLC. We have a bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the county of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Water Supply, Wailuku Kaului Community Plant Area, water supply, acquisition of real property from Wailuku Water Company, LLC, total capital improvement project appropriations, and total appropriations, operating and capital improvement projects. Third, a bill for an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 budget for the county of Maui as pertains to Appendix C as in Charlie, capital improvement projects, Department of Water Supply, Wailuku Kaului Community Plant Area, acquisition of real property from Wailuku Water Company, LLC, and finally, a bill for an ordinance amending ordinance number 4858, bill number 54, 2018, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale, and deliver of said bonds, acquisition of real property from Wailuku Water Company, LLC. Whew. Mr. Boz, any opening comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so thank you for reading those. What's before you is the authorization for acquisition and the funding for that. Purchase price is $9.5 million, and we've included $25,000 in estimated closing costs as a part of that as well. We do have Mayor Alan Arakawa here, initiator of this proposal, as well as the current owner of this land here in the audience as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, any brief opening comments?
Yes, thank you. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all the details. Just remember that when this first came up, we had virtually every environmental group in the county coming in support of this. The Navajo group came in support of this. This acquisition will serve a lot of very, very important long-term benefits for the county. One of those is to be able to preserve one of the most historically significant areas within Maui County and bring it under control of the county. That's the entire Iao area. The aquifer area from Waihe all the way to the borderline with now Ting's property, essentially over 8,000 acres, will allow the county to be able to keep that area from any kind of development in the future. And I want to point out that even though it's in conservation now, when you look at the way things can be adjusted, if you look at Honolulu, you look at all those ridges that used to be in conservation that now have been adjusted to allow housing to be developed, and the rules that can be changed depending on who sits in those chairs that you have and the state, that can occur. If the property is under the county control, then from Waihe all the way through will be preserved forever under the county administration and be able to be controlled as to what can happen. Now, for the cost of this, and you start looking at the historic value and the value to the Hawaiian community as far as all of the, when you start looking at the religious value, you start looking at the cultural value, the significance of this whole area. The water company in and of itself, even though the property was appraised at about $11 million with the right-of-ways, and we'll be spending less than $9 million for it, or right around $9 million for it. That's not the real value. The real value is not the water, even though we break even and make some money off of the water. The real value is in the cultural preservation and the ability to keep the environmental area pristine as we need to. Currently, when you start looking at all of the desecration of the area, especially above Waihe, where the dirt bikes have been going up and down, creating all kinds of challenges, anybody who owns that property, if they're not going to be managing it properly, can allow things to happen that should not occur. And that is an area that needs to be kept pristine. That's an area that needs to be the buffer area for the entire mountain. The whole area back there, if we start letting alien species going in and people going in there without control, it could run away from us. We have an opportunity right now in this transition to be able to acquire over 8,000 acres. You know, when you were looking at the ag lot in Piahi, it was a little over 280 acres. That was $9.5 million. This is over 8,000 acres. So there's very little as far as expenditures goes. This is a minor cost for such a large piece of property. The area that we're looking at for the ag park up in Kula, 800 acres, that's significant, but this one is even more significant in that the cultural impact when you go through Iao and you start looking at the back of the watershed area, that's something that you cannot really put a real value on it. It's priceless. I've been back there a number of times. We've looked at the area. That area needs to be preserved and needs to be kept under county control. We cannot let that private companies possibly go through and do other things to that area and allow other things to happen in that area. Again, when we started this discussion, all 9 of you were in support of doing this. We went through, and because you wanted the appraisal done, we got the appraisal done. It's come in under the cost of what the land value and the right-of-ways are appraised at. But that's the land value as far as if we're going to sell land. The value is really in preserving the culture, the Hawaiian history. Iao, and I don't need to go through the history of it, is one of the most significant areas in Hawaiian and Maui history. And that in and of itself merits the cost. So I strongly encourage you to really look at this. This is something, again, the entire environmental community wanted to be able to preserve. Navaeha groups came in and spoke about it. I will just say this opportunity may not come again. Just like when we had an opportunity to buy Oluwalu for $8.5 million, we let that 880 acres go. Opportunities come once in a lifetime like this. If we don't take it, we may never have the opportunity for this community again. And that's really going to be your decision at this point. I would really strongly like for you to be able to recognize all of the intrinsic cultural value that is there, the people that are trying to preserve the Hawaiian history and the Hawaiian culture of that area, and acquire this property. We know that the cost is a significant cost, but it's insignificant in the value of that property. So I leave it at that. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, are we going to have any comments from the department? Okay, we'll let Director Baisa come forward.
The department really has no comments to make. The majority of this negotiation has been done between the mayor's office and the seller. We are here and we have people that can provide information if it's required. We have engineering, we have fiscal, and we have the corporation counsel that helps the water department. So we're here to be resources to the mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll open it up to our committee members. I'll ask Mr. Atai if he has any questions he would like to pose at this time.
No questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Crivello?
Not at this time, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll? Thank you. Ms. King?
Chair, I'm not sure how much longer I have somewhere to go to. I thought I was obligated till noon, but I do want to point out that the correspondence dated June 1st, 2017, which is a response to the questions posed by the administration on this sale, has 4 answers that say that this information presently does not exist and is not obtainable. So I want to get the mayor's response to that. And did you ever get, I personally was appalled that there's no current business operation analysis. And, when I posed that question in committee, I was told it's all up here. I don't think I don't think we obligated ourselves or said that we were in support of this when we asked for an appraisal. That was a request for appraisal. That was not a vote of confidence in this sale. And all these questions that are still outstanding, even though my understanding is we have a confidentiality agreement, are troubling to me. So I just would like to get the mayor's response to the questions on that memo. And if you need me to read them for you, I will. But the ones that say that the information does not exist.
Mr. Mayor?
When we're doing the analysis of this entire property, the business part of the Wailuku Water Company, some of that you have. The value of business, there is no business value for all the conservation area. There is no business value for all the area that we want to be able to preserve for the historic value for it. There are a lot of things that are not tied to business. We're not buying a business per se. The council sets the rates for water every year. You can set a different rate. You can set a different system that you have. So there is no way to be able to determine what are you going to charge for the water in advance of what the council sets. It is a business model that the council will have to be able to dictate. And if you want to keep it same with the ag rate that is at for the rest of the ag users, that's one thing. Or you want to set a separate rate, you can set a separate rate. But that's going to be for the council to decide, not administration. Again, all the areas where you're looking at trying to be able to determine what is an economic value for the cultural sites that are in EL, the entire area, the environmental value for all of the area that's the land, to me, that's priceless, but we cannot set a rate on that because it's not a business.
Chair, follow up. That wasn't my question, Mr. Mayor. The question was, and I'll read these questions that got no response. We asked for, or you asked for, a current business operation analysis on the viability of Wailuku Water Company. So that is a question on the business side of that. You asked for a report on the condition of the surface water conveyance system and all improvements, including projections or estimates for costs of future maintenance, repair, and improvement of the water system, both short and long term. That information did not exist. You asked for a report summarizing and evaluating the sufficiency of the maintenance, including a maintenance schedule, equipment replacement schedule, and manpower requirements of the surface water conveyance system. That information did not exist. I don't know how you can run a business and not know how many people it takes to run that business or what condition your facility is in. But the other point, and so if you can respond to those, and then also the point of, if we're looking at this as environmental purchase, had you ever considered looking at the open space fund versus water department funds?
Well, first of all, none of these questions are from me. They're all from the council. Okay, so they're not my questions, they're your questions.
Okay.
The business, again, the business model will depend on what the council decides they want to do as a business model. Now, when we're working with what Wailuku Water Company has in the past, again, their rates and our rates may not be the same. So how do you project what you're going to get as payment? Really depends on what the council sets as rates. If you decide you want to be able to set a different rate from what the agricultural rate is, the council can at will set up a model that's very different from what exists right now. The surface water improvements and what you're going to do really is going to depend on how you're going to be able to assess the entire value as a water collection enterprise. The amount of water that we receive from Wailuku Water Company at this point and the amount of revenue that they receive from us has been pointed out. And I can let Avery explain that. He's here, or Paul. They have presented that to you in the past. So I know that was given as far as the original documentation that was there. So that question should have been answered as far as what it costs, what we're going to be able to do with the cost of the water, what we would be contracting Wailuku Water Company for. So that information was there. As far as the equipment and the maintenance, they're agreeing to be able to continue maintaining it for a number of years, up to about 5 years, with chance of extending it until the water department can be prepared to be able to redo it. Now, the cost of trying to redo this really depends on how you're going to be able to work the system. Now, there are going to be changes in what we're doing. For instance, we're creating a water treatment plant. If we don't have the water to the water treatment plant, we've literally lost millions of dollars in investment. So how you're going to be able to provide water for that water treatment plant and how you're going to be able to provide for the Central Maui, we don't have control of that. We're not going to know what it is. As far as the actual monetary amount to be able to maintain it, they have records of what it costs, but what it costs them and what it's going to cost us may be very different. Because if we have to hire our own personnel, and once we start getting into it where we use our own personnel, our costs are very different from what a private company can do. So you're not going to get an accurate cost on that. I can tell you that from Parks Department, for instance, when we used to have contract labor and we used to contract out all of the different parks, it was very different from when we're paying union labor and union wages. The rules all change, what people can and cannot do change. the amount of work for each individual changes from private to public sector. So a long-term business model is not going to be possible to project unless we know when we're going to convert it over, who's going to be able to work it, and what our contracts are.
Okay, well, Chair, that didn't really answer my question. I mean, when you buy a business, you want to know what the cost is, what the current cost is, what the current condition is of that business, and so you can make estimates on what it's going to cost you to run it. Obviously, there are different costs when you take over a business, and there's a different model that you're building. Everybody that I know of who buys businesses hopes to make it more efficient and try to, make it better. But you need to know the basic. You need to know the basic operating expenses. You need to know the basic condition of the site and the facility, and you need to know what repairs are required. You don't have to. I wasn't asking them to tell us what it's going to cost to do those repairs, but we need to know what condition that facility is in. So, I think we don't have enough information to move forward. I wasn't in favor of moving forward with anything other than the appraisal previously, because all this information, if we're going to buy it as for open space, let's use open space funds. If that's the argument for buying this land, but if we're buying it as a water facility, and we know that, I've talked to people at Seaworm, we know we're not going to get more water by buying this. The Seaworm is the agency that allocates the water, so we're at the disposal of that agency buying the facility. And and I've also talked to people in the water department who say we don't use that entire facility. We use a very small portion of it right now. The Department of Water Supply uses like a 2-mile stretch of that, and it would be much cheaper to put in that section of piping than to buy the entire amount. But I just have a lot of open questions, and I keep putting it back on us as the council to figure all that out instead of getting those questions answered from the actual owner who's trying to sell us this facility. So, I apologize, I have to leave because I do have someplace I have to be. But that's, I think this needs to have a fuller discussion, and we need to and maybe each council member put their questions in that they would like answered specifically. But I haven't seen anything. I don't see anything newer than this set of questions that I guess we put forward. I thought it was the mayor, and got at least 4 answers that said presently does not exist, is not obtainable from the water company. So that's my position on it, Chair. I appreciate you bringing it forward for discussion, but there's a lot of unanswered questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. King. Mr. Guzman, any questions at this time?
No real questions, but prior to, I was having a sidebar with Ms. King, and I questioned whether or not the open space fund was being utilized at this time because of the fact that the mayor was pointing out to conservation lands and so on and so forth. So out of the entire TMKs that were being listed on the agenda, how many of those could have been afforded the ability to be funded by the open space fund versus the actual transmission lines and the facility itself? I do see an ACM consultant's contract for $80,000, and I was curious. I don't have that information at the tips, or I need to have it recalled. What was the appraised value that ACM was able to acquire? To perform.
Mr. Boz?
I can look that up. It was attached to the communication
11.
with the dated October 10th from the mayor.
Oh, it's October 10th.
Yeah, it's a very large document, so it's going to take a long time to download. But it was over $11 million was the appraised value of the land and easements. Mr. Chair, if I could answer Mr. Guzman's question about the open space fund. One of the options, just as we did with Launiopoko, was to issue the bonds and then have the debt service paid by the open space fund. Once we've calculated, what value is going to be used, specifically for under the designation of the code for the open space fund, and then what's would be valued for the water department's purposes, then that service can be paid for out of the open space fund, yeah. So it's possible. We do that right now with the La Poco purchase.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I recall it was worked out that way somehow. And so you plan on doing it similarly with this purchase?
Mr. Boz?
Yes, so the administration will propose, could propose that, and then it'll be up to the council to make that designation complete. But yes, it's something that's possible.
Okay, that makes sense. So currently, I have before me the appraisal of 11,100,000. So we're purchasing the properties as well as transmission lines, the whole entity for 9,500,000, or with 26,000 or 25,000 as closing costs.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Guzman. Yes, that's correct. The $9.5 million would be for the land that we're purchasing, as well as the easements that the system crosses on lands that the company doesn't own.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I think it's a good investment, considering the fact that we would be in control of that, the area, as well as the transmission lines itself, and being part of the main controlling operations has a lot of leverage attached to it too. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Cochran?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I appreciate a couple of the other members trying to decipher the comments from Mr. Arakawa about the cultural preservation aspect of this and the sacredness and the significance of Iao versus, is this a Department of Water Supply item? So that's kind of, and then Mr. Guzman mentioned what part of all these TMKs perhaps can be purchased with those funds versus, but I believe this is supposed to be about a Department of Water Supply issue. No. So you're now interested in cultural preservation of Iao and the significance and sacredness of that area.
Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely. From the very beginning, the whole thing is for conservation and preservation, both cultural and environmental preservation. The water part of it is just a portion of it. To me, the main issue is whether we want to be able to take this whole area and conserve it in a way that it should be because of the significant cultural value. Now, we already have Cape Haniwai Park. To do the entire package up there is probably the most significant area on Maui historically. The conservation part, as far as environment, we've been talking, and we've actually done site inspections where you've seen those dirt bikes go up and actually desecrate the area above Waihe. That area, if we don't control it, we can have mudslides and landslides that may take out the village of Waihe. That's very significant from an environmental, to be able to protect those areas. And to be able to just protect the watershed area. For the longest time, we've been trying to be able to acquire property just to be able to protect the watershed areas. That's always been a very, very significant part of this purchase, that whole area. The water part is just, it's a small part of the package. That's what everybody seems to be focusing, but the water part to me is the least significant of the reasons for acquiring this property. The cultural aspect, the environmental aspect is much more significant to me.
Okay, well, that's the first time I've ever heard you highlight those points. So then, Chair, I think we need to decipher then what portions are what Arakawa is saying, and the other portion, because as far as I know, having been up studying Iao Valley and the water treatment and all this stuff, we only manage a very small portion of the ditch. We already have infrastructure that we can run pipes down. So if this is about if the company closes down or not, we don't need to depend on them currently, the way it's set up. So I don't think 9.5 mil should even be on the table under this one item. Then we need to decipher out what truly is about protecting open space, cultural, natural areas versus what truly is for Department of Water Supply. I mean, there's two distinctive things here going on. So when it was first proposed, no, I have never been in support of this purchase, number one. I'm reading through this 833-page document, and there's, as Ms. King had mentioned, some glaring open questions. I mean, just in the title guarantee portion saying that they can't confirm a lot of these deeds per se. It's unrecorded, it's undocumented, it's just word of mouth by who to who. That doesn't sit well with me across the board. So this whole thing really we shouldn't even be entertaining it. You know, just as Mr. Arakawa is trying to entertain that he's so thoughtful about our culture here, especially in Iao Valley. And about building up on steep slopes, that was the first thing I ever passed through this council, was a steep slope terrain bill that Mr. Kaho'olahala left behind to get completed, and Ms. Joanne Johnson. That got done to prevent further building like Oahu, as you mentioned in your opening comments. But Chair, there's fine, we should have redundancy for our water department by all means, and there's a couple mile of strip that all we need to do is put out a few million perhaps at the most in order to make that happen, and not this entire can of worms, as Mr. Paul Meyer had come up here to testify, Mr. Arakawa. I don't want to be put into liability predicaments, and you know of all people, Mr. Chair, and there's some glaring points here that can lead us down that road. And I'm not going to sit here and leave this county or this body in that type of condition for liability and everything else. When we can beef up our water supply and keep it flowing like it needs to be for a few million, and not be ditch managers, but be water purveyors that we do a good job of. So those are my comments, Chair, at this time. I hope we're not going to entertain to pass this through right here, but because there's many glaring questions, and as I take suggestion of Ms. King, that should each individual member here have questions, that we submit it to this committee in order to get in written form the answers back.
Okay, thank you so much. Ms. Sugimura, your opportunity.
No questions at this time.
Okay, the chair will just say a couple of things. I appreciate the proposal. I think it's worthy of our discussion. We are not going to resolve this afternoon. The chair is aware of time restraints as well as the responsibilities to Mr. Guzman's committee. I would just say, though, some of the concerns I have in the current proposal is, one, if we move forward, my understanding is the county then becomes responsible to subdivide a property, which I may not be too interested in. Two, I think there is some concern that the members have regarding item 14 in the title report under the phrase wild deeds issue. I think we need to address that. And then the fourth thing is, some of you have already indicated regarding broken title. Okay, so we have some issues that we need to go work through. One thing I'm convinced, though, as far as for our Department of Finance, we may need to consider a component of land management, because this appraisal doesn't give us what we need. Okay, and there's very difficulty. How do you get comparables on conservation land? It ain't the most traded or sought after property, and our values regarding comps, it's almost 0 to nothing. So again, I would agree. The appraisal gave us a very small perspective, but not a good enough perspective regarding all the components of this request. So unless, Mr. Atai, you have, I'll give you as our subject matter one last opportunity to ask a question, but your chair is going to defer this. We will not resolve this today. Mr. Atai?
Chair, I have no questions. I do support your deferment.
Okay, members, any objections to deferring this item?
No objections.
Okay, we'll defer this item, and if you do have concerns or areas that we'd like to have a response, please submit it to the committee, and we'll forward that on the committee's behalf to the appropriate personnel. Okay, with no further business, thank you for being here. We are adjourned.